All right, everybody, welcome back to On Cycle. Here we go. I know you've been waiting for us to come back on, and we would take a little time off because we had finals, and it was a long week. Robbie went on vacation.
Yep, I went to Alaska.
Yeah, the great outdoors.
Yeah.
Fought some bears, ate some salmon, and and now we're back.
Fought a bear for the salmon.
Ooh, fought a bear for the salmon. I can't wait to see pictures.
Yeah.
So we're back, and everybody's been kind of blowing us up, asking about recaps and finals and how everything went. So we're going to go through today and kind of recap our weekend and kind of some of the weekend, mostly finals for DCI World. And I think we're going to do another episode. Maybe we'll hit a little bit of the DCI all-age stuff in this episode, but this is primarily a world-class.
Yeah, primarily focusing on world-class and especially finals. And now that the season's over, where everything has been cemented.
Yes, everything is done finally, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure I went 12 for 12. So in my
predictions?
In my predictions.
I think you probably did.
Yeah, and I went, and I say this now before we talk about SCV, I called the drum trophy when we were talking about it originally. You were
Impressive.
like, "There's no way they're going to come." I was like, "I'm telling you, man."
I did not take it with that tone, but I was
We'll
doubtful.
hit the recap. Okay, we'll rewatch it. Okay, it's on there. So before we get into that stuff, as always, thank you all for coming back and watching. I want to give a special shout out to two people as we were wandering around the 30,000+ people that were in Lucas Oil Stadium. I was wandering just in the Suvi stand area, and some guy just yells my name. And I was like looking around,
which normally for you is a common occurrence because
true.
you know everyone everywhere.
Walking into a finals night, pushing props, I literally stopped and talked to one person from every core on the way in.
Yeah,
except for the Hercs. I didn't talk to there was nobody from Hercs. But anyway, so I was walking through there, and a guy yells my name, and I was like, "Do I know you?" And he's like, "On Cycle, right?" And I was like, "Oh, it was my little mini celebrity moment." That was like, so Logan, which I hope that's your name. Remember, whoever you are, it's Sunday and you're mowing your grass because that's what you do. You listen to On Cycle while he mows his grass on Sunday. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, shout out, man. I appreciate it. You were the very first person ever like recognized me that I don't know. Super, super cool. If you're in the comments or you hit me up. Send me a message on the face space or whatever else. I'm going to send you a little something, a little thank you. And the second person, I was actually regaling this story to Robbie later in the night, and Lily.
Crystal.
Damn.
You thought it was Lily.
I thought it was Lily.
Crystal
from Atlantis TV came up and just introduced herself and said, she drives up from Florida every single weekend.
Yeah.
And, the podcast was great for her. She listened to it all the way up. So
another person who listens while they drive to Drum Corps, which I think is like 60% of our listening time.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. We posted on Fridays throughout the summertime specifically so that people could have something to listen to on the way to practice. Because if you're in the all-age activity, most of you know that just driving, man. Most people are driving some good distances. And she drove 5 hours from Florida to Atlanta or wherever Atlantis TV practices for practice every single weekend. So shout out for the hardcore dedication. I love that.
Yeah. So that was my little celebration. I mean, I get to hear about yours, and then literally, like, I think 5 minutes later, Crystal comes up to us and is like, "Hey, you guys from On Cycle?" And we're like,
"Oh." I was like, "See, it happened,"
Yeah.
And then lastly, to Ben from Steel City Ambassadors, he's the core director out there. He stopped me and we talked a little bit. So, finals was really cool on that regard. It was neat to kind of, have people come up and say thank you and enjoy the podcast. So, for everybody else that's out there, we appreciate you.
Yeah, and like in the future, if anyone does recognize us, or if anyone did recognize us in India, but was like, I don't want to bother them, please come and bother us.
Bother us.
Please, it was such a cool experience to see, and just, I don't know, kind of a humbling and touching kind of experience to be like, to remember what people our podcast is reaching. Yeah. Right? And to hear that people are enjoying it. Yeah. It's really special.
Next year, I'm carrying a Sharpie with me, and I will sign any merch you have.
Yeah.
I'll just
sign anything you hold up in front of us.
Yeah, I'm just going to sign it. Babies, whatever it is you have with you. Yeah. I'll sign it. Because it's up to you to make us all rich and famous by next year.
Exactly.
So
to provide for tuition payments for future Drum Corps members.
That's right. So speaking of tuition payments, we have our first merch. We have our first official merch, so it's probably going to be hard to see. I'll probably post a picture of it. These are high-quality vinyl on-cycle stickers that we have set up. A couple people already purchased them already. I think I had like 10 or 15 people reach out and buy them already.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. That's awesome.
So for those of you, again, who don't know, maybe new to the podcast, we do like a 50% kind of share towards a scholarship for next season. So we already have a couple of bucks now for next year. Yep. Small to start, but if you get on the face space or hit us in the comments or anything else down there and say hello. They're $5 a piece. $2 goes back to On Cycle to help us keep producing and doing the things. $1 goes to the making of it, and then another $2 goes into the scholarship. So, so yeah, like I said, I like to be transparent about everything. I'll tell you guys what I'm making, but that's money going back to some lucky member next year that we haven't decided on how to give that money out, but we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Now that we actually have some capital.
We have some stuff going on. So we'll have you, the listeners, decide, give us some ideas and decide how we put out that scholarship next year, or maybe multiples, depending on how much,
how much we can give out,
saved up. So I think that's all the businessy stuff.
Yeah. Just reach out if you want one of those. Let us know if there's something else you would be interested in buying. And more, importantly to mention, keep watching this show and sharing it, because this is one method of monetization, but also, if we keep getting a decent amount of views, YouTube will eventually allow us to monetize, right? And then we can be making more direct, money from the viewership process.
Yeah, exactly. We're really, really close. The last couple of weeks, a lot of people have found us and been really excited.
I've been loving the recaps.
Yeah, the recaps, which is why we're doing another one. So,
exactly, yeah.
So whatever you guys want.
Because we just love talking. We would be talking about this anyway, honestly.
Correct, yeah. I mean, we would have been, obviously. But, we're also, we're, what's the right word? We'll do whatever you want. Okay?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Whatever you
just
guys
tell me what you want. You mean dress like a monkey and dance? I'll do that. Just watch me.
Like that.
So that we can,
It'll be part of the Patreon levels.
Yeah, right.
Tell us what kind of silly, embarrassing things to do.
Yep.
For the podcast.
And we'll shout out. So, all right. So, so before we get into the top 12, I know we both wanted to kind of shout out some of the 825 to 15 kind of.
The prelims and semifinal scores
just a couple,
weren't there on finals night.
Yeah, a couple highlights real quick.
Yeah.
You can start if you want.
Yeah, there's a couple of great, we've already talked about, cores like Crossman and Blue Knights and Pack Crest and, a lot of those semifinalist cores. I wanted to specifically mention, because I've been thinking about it a lot with my, home core in DCI Blue Knights. Because they didn't make finals this year. They got 14th, right?
Yeah.
Them and Pack Crest were like pretty close together.
They were duking it out. Yeah, it's a tenth of a point away.
Yeah. I remember seeing Blue Knights this year. I got to see them live at DCI Delaware. And I remember being impressed how much better than last year they sounded, which I think is a reflection of how good everyone was this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of, I feel like I've mentioned before how it feels like drum corps is like everyone figured the stuff out the last 2 years, and then this year it's just everyone's so much better.
Yeah.
I think the best example of that is how much better Blue Knights looks and sounds this year.
Yeah.
And the fact that they still didn't make finals, whereas they did last year, right?
Right.
I saw the show last year, and I think it was neat, but you could definitely tell, like, these weren't moving and playing quite like they used to. I think they move and play so much better this year. And yet, they bumped down 2 spots because everyone, as just a whole, has just taken a few steps up.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
When you look at the recaps in those bottom cores, I mean, like I said before, like Pat Crest coming out like all the way up to 13th. I don't even know what they were last year. Somebody tell me. I think it was like 18 or 19. It was low.
Pat Crest has been one of those cores that's really been like hovering. Like they would have like a pretty good show that would like bump them up near finalist, and I think they would like have a all right show the next year that would like lose some of their momentum. So like I think they've been slowly sort of bobbing around and creeping towards finals.
Yeah.
They'd be a cool core to see make finals.
Yeah, I would love it.
Yeah,
absolutely love it.
They also keep having cool shows that I think people just like. Right?
Yeah, and we talked about it before. Design is so much a part of the modern day drum corps process. Yeah. And a good design goes a long way.
I mean, we've seen it. We've seen good design rocket a few cores up a few spots and take a few other cores down.
Yeah, look at Academy from years ago. You know, there's some really cool. I say that all the time because I love that show. It's such a neat show.
It's a great show.
Yeah, it's a great
gimmicky show.
It is
like in the best way possible.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And it was a fan favorite. Everybody loved it that year. So
because also people just like. I think people. Drum corps fans as a whole just like seeing a new group in finals.
Yeah, somebody different. Yeah, show me something different. And a shout out, I want to shout out to the Battalion. They're relatively newer core. They're open class core still. They ended up at 25th this year, so they got to perform an extra night. Yeah, because they were the bottom of the
just on that
semis, the prelims. Point. Yeah, they were the cutoff. I think that's the first time they've ever made that cutoff.
Yeah,
yeah,
I would believe that. I think because they're pretty new.
Yeah, they're relatively. I think 10 years old, something like that.
Open class up until recently?
They're still open class.
They still are? Okay.
Yeah. They're still, because there were four groups in open class that made.
Oh, they made the points cut off.
Yeah. Made the points cut off. So, and Spartans, came
awesome.
in 19th place. I mean, they're the open class champions this year.
Yeah.
I think they were undefeated.
Yeah, I think that they've been killing it.
Which is a really neat thing. All three DCI groups were undefeated this year.
Yeah, all three DCI champions.
Yeah, all three DCI champions undefeated. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. So we just want to highlight a couple of those lower class cores because I think it's really neat. Spirit of Atlanta, I think was voted fan favorite this year. Like that DCI online. I could be totally wrong about that.
I know
too.
that they got a lot of fan favorite buzz.
Yeah,
it was like their
props were really cool. That big monster thing that they had on the field. The guy that paid all that money to walk around in a big hot suit all summer. Like, good for you, man. I love that. But it was really cool. So, All
right.
All right. So let's move into
dive into the top 12.
Yeah, we're just gonna go bottom up. Start with Madison and
let's start with another fan favorite while we're speaking of it.
Yep.
So happy to see Scouts back.
Dude, it was great.
I forget when exactly, but I'm pretty sure when they were taking the field, Brent Crocker said like, "Welcome back to the field." I love it when he does that.
Yep.
When it's like, "Hey, they've been." I think they did it with Troopers in 22.
Yes,
right?
he did. Yep.
But I love to see it.
Yeah,
right?
it's awesome.
It's such a cool show.
Yeah,
too.
it's such a good show. It's so well performed. We have a couple of friends that are in that group, and they had a great season. They had a great time.
Yeah.
I got a chance to talk about a couple of really, like just some, what's the word I'm looking for? Like approaches that the core has had. It seems very, very much like they are going to continue to grow based off of this wasn't just a fluke design year. It was a good design year, but it's not just a fluke. I think they're going to continue to have great seasons in the years to come.
I think back in the late teens, they took a few hits to this lost a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that on the way up here because I was listening to Scout's show on the way up here.
Nice.
So, last time they made finals was 17, right?
Okay.
So that's like 7 years away, I think, and it's basically 4 competitive seasons not making finals after that. Both times, they end the season in 12th place. And it's crazy to hear the difference in experience from members that we know that marched both seasons.
Yeah.
Because we know Caroline and a few other people who we had on the podcast, right?
Yep.
Who marched this season versus our good friend Jack marching 17. And if you talk to him about it, it's, he's very proud about the time that he spent there, but he will also tell you it's
brutal.
Brutally difficult.
Yeah. Right.
I think the staff that year was very much like, hey, we didn't make finals last year. That's not happening again.
Right.
And you're going to pay for it. Right.
Yeah.
So they just beat the members into the ground. And then, I think it also breeds this idea of being like, geez, like we get the crap beaten out of us all season just to like barely eke by at finals, and it creates this like resentment feeling. And then everyone left the next year, I'm sure.
And probably a lot of people didn't come back.
Yeah, because people were like, why would I want to be beaten up?
Yeah, you're not creating an environment that people want to be a part of.
Versus this year, as far as I can, hear from the members that we watched, everyone was like, it's so enjoyable just to be a part of the process. And I'm sure that framed. I mean, it helps that they didn't make finals in the previous years, so it helps reframe their positioning. But, I'm sure this year they were like, hey, we made finals. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think, if Scouts in 17 had the membership had ended with that kind of feeling of accomplishment rather than just being, worn down and ready to be done.
Yeah.
They probably would have been able to stick around and maybe could have stayed up near the finalist spot.
Yeah, because they went down really low after that, right? They were like down to 16th.
Yeah, they dropped a few places both of the following years after that.
Right. So
And I was just gonna say I've said this before. I think Scouts design has they've like really shifted while they were in that like middle of semis pack. Shifted their design philosophy, I think, and now we're really starting to see that pay off. Like the design team has figured it out, and they've got members that want to be there and keep the core growing.
And that has a lot to do with administration. I think that they've made some administration changes over the last few years, and they've moved some people around. And when you have good people that want organizations to thrive, not just this year but all years, then you end up with better places to exist, right?
Yeah.
And I think that comes along with, so this is a cool little fact. It's the first time a woman from Madison has ever marched in finals.
Yeah.
Because
I was just thinking about that.
Yep, because the first time that Madison Scouts, who have had women in the core now for the last couple of years, that they've never made finals until this year.
They finally made finals, which is really cool.
Really, really neat group of people. Like, you know, Caroline, obviously one of our friends, she gets to say that she's one of the very first women to ever be in a Madison Scouts drum corps to make finals.
Yeah,
you know,
which is really cool.
So it's a really neat little feather. You know, you get to say that for, you know, I know that they celebrated that a little bit, and I think it's really, really neat.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, to say a few specifics, I mean, listening to them on the way up here, their brass sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's just so good.
It's just so, like, the brass design really highlights their strengths, I think, and it just sounds great.
Yep.
The mellows sound awesome.
Yeah,
I think
they really do.
More and more chords are featuring their mellows.
They were staged very well this year, the mellows.
Yeah, figuring out how to, like, feature and stage mellows. More chords are doing it, and Scouts is, you know, no exception to that. They're doing great.
No, they're killing it.
I thought the uniforms are awesome.
Yeah.
Just the whole visual design. The props are cool.
Yeah.
They're simple. It's just like a nice metal, you know, structure that can move around. It's got a cool, interesting design to it that, like, fits the theme.
Yep.
And the uniforms fit in with that. Just a really, really fun show overall.
Yeah. One of the things that really highlights that show for me too is that you get to see how simplistic certain things can be and still be effective.
Oh yeah.
I think it was the ballad.
A lot of chords have figured that out.
The ballad or whatever it was, the entire tuba line is on one of those props, just standing there or sitting there for like 3 minutes of the show. I'm like, whoo, what? I get to stand still and catch my breath and just play good sounds, and it's a really neat
what the Blue
feature.
Devils do every ballad except for this year.
Wild.
But
wild. You know. Oh, you know.
Sometimes we can just stand still and let the music speak for itself.
Yes, and it still looks good. It's visually effective. You know, you're highlighting the sections that need to be highlighted. It's interesting. You're not muddying the field with a bunch of nonsense that doesn't have to happen. Like it was a really, really good design.
I think multiple chords have figured out the whole, like, we can stand still. We don't, you know, there are some moments where moving is way more effective.
Of course.
But some moments where it's like we can just stand still and let the music sort of speak for itself.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, the other thing too is like
another fan favorite corps did that for the closer.
You're demanding so much of members nowadays that you can't have them sprint. So we talk about the quality of organizations, right? And the quality of the member experience. You look at the late zeros, early tens, and you see those groups that are just flying. You ask anybody that marched, who marched during those times, and they say they got their asses handed to them the entire season. Yeah, because they're just beating them into the ground to try to make them good, which is a process.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like it can be a process if it's done right. If it's basically almost built like a training or like bodybuilding regimen almost. Where like that, because we're focused of like we're not gonna do this because we hate you and we're gonna punish you. Yeah. Sometimes corps would do that, but that usually doesn't pay off. It's like we want you to be strong. Yeah. Right. We are gonna have a hard show, but we are going to help you get strong enough to kill it. Yeah. Right. That's that's an approach that can work. Yeah. I think.
I don't think, and this is me being old and looking at just the general environment of kids these days. I say kids, the under 21s. Kids these days. The under 21, they're not built like I was built back in the day. You know, like I spent all my time outside, but like there were kids my age range, the early millennials they're just built a little different. We were built with harder families. We were built with harder, like there was just the expectation of that kind of stuff, I think, was more expected in my generation. Yeah, and here's the thing: it's not right or wrong, it's just different. And I don't think that approach to today's kids is effective. You know what I mean? I don't think people respond to it very well, and as it shouldn't. Like, you know, like I look back on mine, I'm like, oh my God, how did people get away with treating me that way as a 16, 17-year-old kid? You know. And nowadays, that would be people would go to jail if they did the things to me that I went through. Yeah, they'd be
like, you did what to them?
Yeah, you're like, no.
How many water breaks did you give them? One?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, like water. You know, I tell people all the time, water jugs were not a thing in my time. Like my first 8 seasons, I didn't own a water jug. We had a 5-gallon cooler on the sideline with paper cups, and we got one water break in the morning. You know, and then we got one water break at between the lunch and the dinner time. And then there was like, and then the nighttime was like, it's night, the sun's down. Well, you don't need water. That was it. And you were just like, okay. And you just went and they just beat you into the ground. But you were built for that back then. Kids were starting, and then also the demand was much less back then too. Like the demand that these young members are being asked of nowadays is way more than my demand was back then too.
Yeah,
so
a variety of different
for a lot of
expectations.
So I don't want to trail off too much onto that as we talk about the Scouts. I think all that bleeds into the statement of they're doing good things. I think they're going to continue to grow.
Yeah, they're doing the right things.
Everything they're doing up there feels very a la Mandarins from last year. Their show made me feel it wasn't quite as GE spectacular, but the way it was staged, the way it was run, the brass book, how they were moving, how they were playing.
Just a solid.
It was just a very solid, well-designed program that made sense. There was that thing went around on Facebook about the decibel level of the crowd.
Yes,
in there.
I was going to bring that up.
I think they were like number 2.
They were one of the highest, crowd reactions.
Yeah, it was them, and I think Phantom was number 1.
Yeah, them Phantom and Troopers were like,
it was
right?
It was Phantom, them, Troopers, and then I think Bluecoats was after that.
Yeah, a lot of very big fan favorite shows. This year.
A lot of huge fan favorites. Yep. So good on you, Madison. It was fun to watch.
Oh,
you know,
I'm excited to see what they do next year.
So moving on from there, Cavaliers were in second place, or
ended up in 11th. Yep.
I'm 11th, which honestly, like we said it a couple times on the show, I think that's where they deserved. They belong. Deserve is a strong word, but that's where they belong. When you look at the other groups and how dominant they were, and honestly, watching the shows live, I would have still put them in 12th. I would have bought Madison over there. I didn't think the score was not want to say not correct, but I think it should have been closer.
Yeah,
there was still a pretty good gap.
It was about 0.5 apart. I was just looking it up, which means the Madison Scouts was like pretty close, but also like usually 0.5. That's around like the 0.25 to 0.5 range is like right around that. Like that's a pretty solid gap.
Yeah.
Right. But I remember I looked at the recap. I'm going to confirm this, but I think Scouts beat Cavaliers in both GE and visual. They got 10th in visual, which is crazy.
Yeah, makes total sense.
But then Cavies beat them in music
and probably drums. Yeah, drums and brass.
Yeah,
you know,
which is frankly crazy. I guess I didn't really listen to Cavies. I didn't get to catch them at finals, but I remember hearing it sounded like they were struggling in brass the couple of times that we watched. So they may have tweaked some stuff.
I'll tell you this. I listened to it live, obviously, and I was down front. I was in 141. I had great seats. I was like 18 rows back from on the 45. You know, like it was fucking awesome.
Great to be able to just hear everything.
Oh, it just got my face blown off the entire night.
Yeah,
and I will say live they were much cleaner.
Gotcha.
I think it was. I said this at the very first episode recap that we talked about. I could not stand their audio and how they were pumping whoever their audio engineer down there was.
Yeah,
I thought it's by far the worst drum corps audio engineering I've heard all season.
Yeah,
you know, it was just the balance was just awful. So, but when I got to hear it live and I could hear the horn line playing correctly through, I was like, oh, okay, now I understand some of these parts.
That makes sense.
This stuff makes way more sense.
Yeah, and there's also the last time I saw them to make a judgment about their show was a few weeks out from finals.
Oh, you were in Delaware, right, when you saw them?
No, they weren't at Delaware. It was I think it was a.
We saw them. Yeah, it was a video,
a recorded show. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff you can do in the last couple of weeks of finals to just like clean stuff up, especially if an audio engineer figures out their stuff and like balances it right. It's like, oh, you can actually hear. Yeah, they're still playing with some talent.
Yeah, I still didn't think it was very good. Personally, like I mean, it's not the shit on the members and what they're doing because they're doing everything they're supposed to do. I think they lost probably at least a whole place to Troopers because I thought visually they were a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
Than Troopers were.
Well, I mean, there's a 1.5. No, hold on. Yeah, 1.5 point gap between them and Troopers, which I think.
I mean, that's about right. You know.
Yeah. I think Troopers just kept building up steam by the end of the year, and Cavaliers kind of.
They flatlined.
I'm sure they were in damage control.
They got rid of the faces.
They got rid of the AI faces. Yeah.
They got rid of the faces, whatever those things were, which I think was a good move.
Yeah. Although they replaced them with some like generic graphics.
Yeah, it was just a generic. It was just like a graphic overlay. That was
something.
It was like a color. This in the same color palette that their uniforms were in.
Okay.
So like it kind of made sense, but I think everybody. Yeah. I think the judges were like, we don't get it. You know, they were probably trying to fix. Whatever the internet was bashing them for about it or whatever it was.
Which like even like I watch. I'm like I don't think the faces don't make sense. They just look weird.
Yeah. You know, it's like watching Polar Express now.
Oh, yeah, it's Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. You're like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
They seemed like they were
Why does Tom Hanks look that way?
Yeah. I haven't found confirmation of this, but everyone, I think agrees they had the weird sort of AI generated quality about them.
Yes.
I don't know if they were technically, but they looked like they were.
Yeah, it was just,
and that's enough to make some people be like,
yeah, it's just an
I
artistic.
don't like this.
It's just an artistic choice that just didn't work, Yeah,
exactly.
And so, but I mean, other than that, like everything else was fine. The show was exactly what we've said about it. I think each time it's like it has a couple of moments. You're like, okay, the soloists were fine, but not.
Yeah,
I don't think they were used correctly. Again, they're not mic'd correctly. I didn't understand like why they were there. Like I didn't get it from a full package concept. Like it just looked like it was just moving from place to place, and which is probably why they were in 11th, because everybody else saw it the same way. The judges did anyway, So I think they were right where they deserved to be.
yeah,
but
yeah. I know. I've heard there's some like big like top level changes. I think that they're going to undergo next year.
I heard that too.
I would be very curious to see what they're going to do, what they're going to shift around to try and remedy that, because I'm sure everyone at that core recognizes they didn't have as strong a season as they wanted to.
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure that's an apparent reality.
11th place, I mean, like we're going to talk about it in a second, but this is the first time the Troopers have beaten the Cavaliers in 40 plus years.
Yeah, it's like the 70s or something.
Yeah, like the 74, I think is what it was.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's wild, and that's not to say that the Cavaliers were inherently bad this year because the Troopers were very good, but that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen for 40 plus years.
I mean, so, any core, your measurement of success for where you place is going to depend on how you've been doing historically.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
So 11th place for a group like I don't know, Crossman or Mandarins in previous years or something like that. Like normally we'd be like, heck yeah,
sure,
we got 11th place.
Great, right.
We made finals, right? But for Cavaliers, who's historically been performing better than that.
Yeah. I mean, they have the third most championships out of any drum corps. Yeah. So, they're the third most winning.
The second group out of any that's still around.
That's true. The second that'll still exist. Yeah. Sorry, cadets. but yeah, you expect a lot out of that organization, I think. And I listen, I know I have tons of friends and people that are in an organization. I know they're going to turn it around. They're too good and too storied. They're too well supported that it's going to, whatever the issues are, whatever they may be, I have no doubt they're being rectified and corrected.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people in a very strong community and alumni presence around that core. Yes. I think that's part of the reason Madison was able to pull out of the tailspin is they have a big, they're a very historic core, and they've got a lot of people gunning for them.
Yeah,
right?
and I think the alumni has come out of in a lot of groups recently and kind of come out and did some pretty neat stuff. So we can move on to the Troopers.
Yes, Troopers, another fan favorite.
10th place, it's the highest they've placed in a long time.
Yeah,
I don't know what the years is. It's got to be probably 30 some years.
I mean,
no, they were pretty high in the 90s.
Did they get 11th in 22? Yeah.
No, they were 12th, I think, in 22. They just made it. Yeah, they just eked in, and then last year,
I think they did. Yeah, because I remember, I think it was Crossman and Blue Knights, where our buddy Gabe, who marched Troopers, sent a meme of this, where it was like Crossman and Blue Knights like trying to like gun it out for finals, and then Troopers sneaking in behind them and being like,
"See ya." Yeah. So, so I mean, it's super cool. I mean, everybody talks. It's a big. Everybody's talked about that show. It's really
another
neat.
just like spectacularly designed show.
I think if it had like the visual performance of it was probably the weakest part of it. Yeah, personally, which wasn't
frankly, yeah. Right. I don't think it had a significantally weaker section than the rest of it. I think it was pretty even across the board. Yeah, and it's the thing. So a couple of things like for that. Obviously, they're in 10th place. They do that. Do you know? I found out like right before finals, the performer that's the guitar player, that kid is 15. I think I remember someone saying something about
15
that.
or 16, one of the two. He is
pretty young.
He was contracted as a mellophone player too before.
Why do they always do that?
Steal our mellows.
It's always wild. I mean, as far as I can tell, a lot of like core non-traditional instrument performers keep being taken from mellow. I'm pretty sure the girl who was the vocalist for Bluecoats 2018.
Yes, she was a mellow.
Was a mellow player.
Yep, I remember that.
Right. The guitar player from Coats in 22 was a mellophone player for part of that show, and now Troopers.
Here's why. Because nobody plays a freaking mellophone, okay? Nobody comes into 4th grade and was like, I want to learn an instrument. Here's a mellophone.
Yeah.
Like maybe French horn, because that's the general progression.
Yeah.
And then you have trumpet players, and if they're good, they're probably going to stay playing trumpet, and the mellophone's a tough horn to play. So,
I guess I'm just more curious. I'm always curious whenever they contract a member on a certain instrument and then move them to another very central part of the show.
It's because they're gifted.
Instrument.
It's because they're gifted kids. Like it's 15, 16 years old. He's got the center part of the entire show.
Yeah.
He can play. Like that's what he's there for.
I'm just
Same
curious,
thing with the keytar kid.
I know other corps that have had performers on non-brass instruments have not done that, right? They've been like, hey, we're just looking for
a
guitar
performer.
player, or we're just looking for, I think the Crown 2017 vocalist was just like a theater performer, basically being like, we need a theater performer. She didn't like. I always just find it a curious process that someone would audition on a certain instrument and get a contract for that, and then I mean, it might just be they're multi-talented and they auditioned for both, and they they're good enough to get contracted for both.
Right. So I do know when Troopers had a thing out, on Facebook and wherever else they were marketing, looking for a guitar player.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they were doing that originally, and then this kid was like, hey, I can play, so can I audition even though I already have a contract or whatever the case may be? I don't know. If he's out there, if any of my Troopers fans are out there, I'd
be curious to know what the process is. Because obviously especially in those shows where it's very well incorporated, they have to have that part in mind already, right?
Sure. I believe that.
I mean, we did that last year with our guitar player, right? With Jackson being like, this is going to be a central part of the show and it's integral to the entire design.
Yeah.
Right? Bluecoats didn't just, I'm pretty sure they did at least, just slap in a vocalist or a guitar soloist.
Yeah.
Willy-nilly. Maybe they did. I don't know. I mean, but it seems like it would have been a core part of the design process from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it was for Troopers because they put out that MIDI.
They put out that MIDI,
right?
Yeah. Which brings us to the next thing, because Troopers breaking the world again. 24 hours, not even after they're done their 10th place run. They're like,
the
guys,
turf isn't even cold.
Here's next year's show.
Yeah.
Wild. I freaking love that.
I think it's rad. Yeah.
They're doing a 3-parter, so they're finally finishing out the story with
which such a cool thing that
so neat.
I know some corps do that in like a spiritual successor kind of way.
No.
I don't know when the last time is that we saw just a straight up like sequel show or a trilogy of shows. That's just cool.
Lucy,
is awesome.
Lucy was a trilogy show.
Lucy was a sequel show.
Which is
true,
super cool.
Right?
Madison Scouts, I can remember those, 95, 96, A Drum Corps Fan's Dream and A Drum Corps Fan's Dream Part Dos.
Yeah. There was a less successful story of that with Cadets 2005 to 2006.
Yes, correct. Oh, that's right.
Like the Zone Part 2.
Yeah.
What if we did it this year, but we didn't sweep?
What if we did last year's championship show, but did it not good?
Yeah.
So so there's a couple of things that have been out there that make sense, or that, like you said, conceptually you can tie one to the next. But who does story shows like that?
Yeah,
like back to back to
back.
I mean,
Troopers has just been
so cool.
Troopers has just been, I think, the best story corps. In the post-COVID era.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
So far.
They're the only story corps.
I mean, they're the only really story focused. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Is there any other shows that are really specifically story focused? They're really not. Crown,
but they're also.
I mean,
last year's and this year's were pretty story heavy.
That's true. You're right.
They're both. They're both about.
You're right. The king
central stories. Yeah. It's just that they didn't tell the stories as well as Troopers, so I think it's easy to forget. I agree. It's easy to forget.
Yeah, especially this year.
We'll more on that. Later.
We'll more on that later.
Yeah, but Troopers.
Good on you, Troopers. I
So
can't wait
awesome.
to drop the MIDI. It'll be next week. Next week they're going to drop the MIDI probably.
Also, can I say I think we can talk more about this with SCV in Boston, especially, but a lot of very smart and economical use of props this year.
Yes,
Troopers does a sequel show. Just keep the cool prop from last year.
Yep, done.
And they still got new stuff. I mean, those platforms that move up and down are very cool.
They were really
and very dangerous looking. I'm glad nothing broke.
Yeah,
and it kind of almost added to like the atmosphere to see them kind of like rickety a little bit, and made it, I don't know, gave this like, it gave this feeling of like these are like infernal machines almost, right?
Yeah.
I got a way to reuse the props. Paint it black.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wonder if they're going to paint. They'll paint it white next year. I don't know. I bet you. I mean, it's got to come back again.
Yeah, or maybe like, because what is the name of the show? Oh my god!
It's the final ride. I think.
Yeah,
is what it was.
I wonder if they'll like.
They're going to turn that thing into a horse.
Yeah, transforms into a horse. It'd be cool if
that
they
would be
like
awesome if that prop.
if they just weathered it, you know.
Tramp steering.
Oh yeah, here it is. Such a cool.
Yeah, and the poster's great.
Yeah,
like
the final sunset.
the
and it's
final
all, like,
sunset. There it is.
It looks all like weathered. It would be
Yeah.
cool if they took that prop and just like stripped all the paint off it and just like beat the crap out of it.
Yeah, right.
So it looks like it's like old and decrepit.
They should explode
almost.
it. They should blow it up at finals.
Big thing of TNT.
Like an old school, like stompy.
Yeah, like
TNT.
someone like does a thing where they kick their legs up and push down and it blows up at finals.
That would be awesome.
That'd be sick.
That would be so cool. You know, or they rig it somehow that it falls apart every show.
Oh,
that would be
sick.
so cool. You
A
know,
little Marion, one of those little toys you press the button
yeah,
and
and
they
it
just
just
collapse.
falls apart. Yeah, yeah. All right,
be
there you go,
sick.
Troop. There's your idea. You heard it first
Yeah,
here.
yeah, you're welcome.
That's free. You can have that.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So
I mean, any final comments about? I mean, just super cool.
I mean, it was just a cool show. It's
Yeah.
really, really neat. I'm
It's a
excited
great
to see
show.
it next year.
Very loud brass.
Yeah,
I know
powerful.
the brass takes the. We can talk about brass approaches at some other point, but from what I hear, Troopers is one of those corps that their brass approach is. I need you to play as loud as humanly possible,
And then we'll tone it
from the
back.
beginning. Yeah, and then we will figure out tone later.
Yeah. Which that's an old school drum corps approach.
I love it.
That is
yeah.
the 90s approach
I
all
think
day.
it leaves them
Play
sounding a
louder.
little harsher than most other
Probably.
corps, and maybe a little less mature sounding. But it's also just like
I also think that probably has to do.
sometimes I just won't get punched in the face with sound. You know?
I think that has a little bit to do too with just members. You know, when you're a bottom 12 corps, you're getting good members, but you're also not getting. You're not the Bluecoats getting every great member that wants to go to drum
professional
corps.
level brass players.
Exactly. You're not getting all those people coming in just that sound incredible from day one. So you have to train, you know, and they do a good job. And I think that's an appropriate drum corps way of training. It's not a very good musicianship way of training, but it is a good
it's not going to earn you
drum
points in
corps.
a Philharmonic orchestra or
No,
anything.
not at all. But it will help.
It's awesome. It's cool, and I love it as a drum corps fan. I'm like, just
absolutely.
melt my face off.
Yeah, I just
right?
want to be just punched in the face with sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, good on you. I know.
Yeah, great job,
I know.
Troopers.
I know
Yeah.
one of the tuba techs out there. He's a friend of mine.
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah. So you can get him to come on and talk about it.
Yeah.
And, yeah. He was an old. I marched with him at Cavs.
Gotcha.
Cavaliers.
Cool.
So anyway,
Colts.
ninth Colts. Here's the thing: like Colts and Blue Stars. We talk about both of these. I thought they were pretty much locked up almost all
Yeah,
season.
and I think I've been looking at the scores.
They're straight across.
Yeah, I mean,
know?
there's almost a point difference between Colts and Troopers, and then almost a point difference between Colts and Blue Stars.
Yeah.
Right. And they're all, and then again, actually, Blue Stars is like 0.5 away from Mandarins, which good on you, Blue Stars.
If you look at
impressive.
the recaps on that too, Mandarins really hurt on drums, I think, and Blue Stars really did very well on brass.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Blue Stars brass sounded
Yeah,
great.
they sounded awesome. But it's Colts and Blue Stars. So they're. I had the same opinion about both shows, but from a different perspective. Colts show was really, really great the first time I saw it, and it was very clean. It looked great. I understood the concept. It was super neat. It was like a drum corps show from 10 years ago. You know, like it was very, very good. It was very clean. It just kind of it was a little lackluster throughout the show. Like it was hard for me to get from point A to point B.
That's fair.
You know,
Yeah.
and not necessarily hard, but it was like, okay, why am I listening to this song now? Why am I here? Like, what's going on? It's very like what I argue about the Bluecoats the Blue Devils all the time. It's very highbrow, and I don't understand the musical choices and how they apply to what's going on, just in a tonality and a process. Like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Visually awesome. The design is super cool. You know, we said that plenty enough times. I think they're exactly right where they should have been. Great brass sound, really great soloist in there.
I think, which is wild because Colts Stanley got 11th in brass, which I think is just a testament to
Their visual package.
Yeah, and also that again, their brass did not sound bad at all.
No, not at all.
Not
No.
a single. I don't think a single finalist corps did not have very impressive brass.
Yeah.
This is one of the best years for brass, I think, in a long time.
Oh yeah, totally agree.
I think 2019 was maybe the best year for brass. It was just crazy how good every single line sounded that year.
Yeah.
And now
It was wild.
This year, I think we're finally getting back
to
up
that.
to those sorts of levels where like
Yeah.
every corps, you're just like, God, they sound good.
Yeah, exactly. Whew,
Right.
Jeez, oh man. I think they were great, you know, and that's what I had to kind of say about the Blue Stars is that, you know, they're in 8th place. We said they were in 8th place all year.
Yeah.
They were far away from 9
Again,
and
yep.
far away from
Just very
they started
securely.
to close the gap, but they closed the gap because of their brass book. Their brass book was so good.
And their brass performers are awesome.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
And they it's just it was cleanest high school show in drum corps this year. You know, like it's a cool design, you know, and again, it's, somebody else said it too, even their uniforms. I was like, guys, you're a professional drum corps. You look like,
I was just thinking of this on the way up here. Blue Star's design, I think this year was really solid, with the glaring exception of whoever designed their color palette and props.
Yeah. And
which sucks because
where they bought their uniforms from.
Anything that designed like the visually made stuff on the field, like the visually produced objects on the field, including you know, props and uniforms. Which sucks because Blue Stars, like, again, they jumped up 3 spots from last year.
I think the biggest jump of the season.
Yeah. Like it was like
Crest.
them and Phantom and Pacific Crest are probably the 3. Like I think
Phantom only jumped 2, right? Because they were in 6th place last year.
No, they were in 7th. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. So there's 3. There's a 3 spot. Okay, so
a lot of good jumps. It sucks because Blue Stars, the props and uniforms, they just look bad. They just don't look like they look a little better when they fold them down, but it's still like you said, they look cheap.
Yeah. They look like they paid $23.75 for them,
and like and the planets and the way they're laid out in the field is like just looks very high schoolish, like you said.
It does. It looks
which
empty.
Sucks because that is the first impression that you make is what do the uniforms and props and setup of the field look like.
Yeah.
So when that's a glaringly bad part of your show, then these very talented members and the talented brass and visual designers have to spend the entire rest of the show making it up and and being like, guys, I know our uniforms look crappy, but we're a good drum corps and we can move and play really well. Right, which they can. Right, those performers were great. Their brass book sounds awesome. They were visually strong.
They moved very well this year. I thought.
I just looked at their overall visual scores they got tied for 7th with Mandarins.
Okay,
right.
That's I think fair.
Solid movers, right? It's just like it's a shame that the very first impression that they make is a poor one, and it's just a poor design choice.
Yeah, it's all it is. And it's weird too because I have really enjoyed, minus the lumberjack here, I've really enjoyed their uniform designs.
The 2019? The cold one with the mountain?
No. That one I loved.
That one I loved. The construction worker with the
construction word. Yeah, they wore Timbs on the field.
Yeah, that was glaring. Like, everyone kind of lost their minds in 2018 with uniforms. And this was like, what if everyone looked bad? And I was like, okay, well, let's tone it back slightly. And then eventually they
I was like,
started to figure it out better.
That is a bold choice for things because they had work belts on the entire time. It was like, I'm like
guys,
I get it. But
too gimmicky.
Yeah.
Too on the nose.
Let's relax a little bit. But they were well designed and like they were. You could understand what they were trying to do.
Exactly.
That
I get what they were going
really
for.
Bad screen printed shirt, from a guy on a corner in New York City.
Hey, I'm just going to make a PSA to anyone designing a visual package or uniform. Hit yourself in the head with a hammer if you're thinking about screen printing something. Stop screen printing uniforms.
Yeah, they're terrible.
They always look awful.
Yeah, correct.
Just unbelievably bad.
Yeah. They're terrible.
Every single time I've seen something screen printed on a uniform, I'm like, that looks crappy. That looks terrible.
It looks awful.
Like, has 5 years of this crap not been enough for uniform designers to get that we need to stop screen printing things?
It's terrible. It looks bad every time. And here's the thing, and there's other things you can do to fix that. Like if you're going to screen print something and make because it's a tighter shirt or the material you're putting on, put something on over top of it.
Exactly. Or just screen print something simple, right? A simple pattern. Yeah, put something like. I think one of the reasons it looks bad almost every time is because people like if you're going to do a complex color palette on it, it just looks cheap. It's not screen printing doesn't look good with designs with color depth in them, and then it looks flat. Like you said, uniforms need layers to them.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
They either need to be simple or they need to have layers to them.
Yeah,
right.
Like Mandarins. Like I saw their uniforms up close. Super freaking cool.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Really.
We got to see a bunch. I mean, at finals, if you've never been there, there's a lot of like uniform.
Displays.
Stands. Yeah, where you get to like see one up close.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see how good a lot of these uniforms
I saw
really
SCVs
look
up close too because I had that little thing right there.
Yeah.
Really freaking cool. I was like, oh, these are super neat uniforms. Yeah. And they're just good. They're just well designed uniforms. And you're going to pay a little bit more for them, obviously. Like, okay, do it. You know what I mean? Or don't do whatever that is. You could have put them all in black spandex and it would have looked better.
Exactly. I'm like,
look at them.
If you just made them solid,
space.
if you just made them solid blue, it would have looked better.
Yeah, there's space. Look at them all in black, and they could have pantomimed the entire thing and it would have been better.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
It is because the show was good. I enjoyed it. Solo was so good.
It's a cool show.
Really cool.
It's just like like I said, it's a shame that it feels like they got so many points docked in so many people's minds because of what really amounts to the design decisions of one or a handful of people.
Correct. Yep. So I think because I think that they could have easily beaten Mandarins because I think audibly they were cleaner. I think like from a whole process book and everything, like you said, I think they were close to Mandarins, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were, I think, about 0.5 away again.
Yeah,
right?
so it's half a point.
Right, right in the range of like, a few things were different. Maybe it could close the gap. Right? It's like, that's right where it transitions from close to solid lead.
Yeah, because you're right. Like no matter how good of a judge you are, adjudicator you are, it is impossible to erase first impressions out of your mind. And you can you can be as
work
non-biased as possible, but I don't think that you can really truly eliminate it completely.
Yeah,
you can do the best you can.
Yeah,
but when you walk out there, like I'll tell you this right now, you look at Blue Devils this year, I saw their uniforms and I was like, oh shit, those are cool. Like, that's your first impression. Oh, whoa, look, those are cool.
And then they incorporate them in a cool way at the start of the show, and it's like it's a great first impression.
And you like anything else, like good marchers, if you move well, you sound well through proximity. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because like, I'm not watching all this other nonsense and dirt, unless I'm blind and not looking at it, I'm just listening. So
visual designers, I've had them say that so many times people listen with their eyes.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. They sure do. So, so that being said, moving on to sixth place, right, which is Mandarins. Oh,
or seventh
place. Excuse me, seventh place, which is Mandarins.
Yeah, another. I think Colts, Stars, and Mandarins are the three that are like, they ended up exactly where we thought they would.
Been. Yeah,
right. And exactly where I think they deserved to be from performance and design standpoints.
I will say this: the more and more I watch that show, the less enamored with it I was.
Really?
Yeah. Not that it wasn't good at all.
Yeah.
I just, the first time I saw it, and I was like, whoa, that is really, really cool. Like, I was really into it. And then I saw it the second time, and I was like, oh, cool, look at all these neat little extra things that I missed the first time. And then I watched it the third time, and I was like, now I'm starting to see not the holes, but like the transitional issues. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, I heard that, I got that. What about this?
The shine wears off the apple a little bit.
A little bit, and you're like, oh, okay. I get it now. Obviously still incredible performance. Their horn line sounded lights out. Yeah. They were so good.
Once again.
And I love a lot of their design concepts with the just the New Orleans feel and everything about it. It was exactly where it should have been. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think like I said, as we've said before, I think they cemented their place as a solid middle of the pack finalist core. Yeah. They got room to grow, right? In a good way, right? They're like, hey, we've earned our spot in the middle of the pack here in finals.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And that's where I think that's where they'll hang out and stay probably for the next year or two, unless they have a gangbuster show like they had last year, but with all the technical and everything upgrades that they're starting to put in.
Besides Boston, I think they would be the next core in line to watch for their first ever championship sometime in the future.
For their first
so.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Because all
for the first ever world class,
because they
for first ever, Boston is obviously has the potential to get it within the next few years.
Yeah, because you're right, because they don't have a championship.
Yep.
Yet. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think, but just with the growth we've seen Mandarins get, I think within the next 10, 15 years, we could start. If they keep it up and they really put the foot on the gas, there might be a championship in their sight at some point.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, they have such great design. They've had good design for the last 10 years, pretty much now, and
they've been climbing and climbing.
Yeah, and they're figuring it out.
Yep. Yeah. So it'd be cool if that happens sometime in the future.
Love the show, start to finish, the whole thing.
Yeah. I love the ending.
Seeing it live, I talked trash about their audio guy with the trio at the midsection. I still think it could have been louder, but it was better than I thought it was going to be when I saw it. Yeah. So I was happy I saw it live.
I saw them from very far away and up.
Yeah, you guys were up just
on we're like the 640s or something, like way up, which means we'd still see everything pretty well and hear everything, which was important. Right. It sucked. We had to watch Troopers from the sideline. They had all this power that we could tell, and it was just going away from us.
Yeah, that sucks.
We got to see Mandarins, yeah, and we got to see a little bit of, them crouching behind the houses.
Yeah.
I think someone, I forget it was Mandarins or someone else, but I think someone said they saw a tuba player like pick up a bottle of water and take a drink like mid-finals or something. I was like, hey, fair. I'd do that if I could.
Yeah, right. If I could have it on the field, I'd do the same thing, right? It was really neat. That was one thing that was cool because I was like at eye level with all the performers. So as they're crouching down behind and like hiding away, like you could see them kind of like waving and like they're as the walls are closing up at the end, like the people are just kind of like melting in behind.
Yeah, it's a cool effect.
It was really like when you see it at a lower level, you could see it that way because obviously you're higher. You're getting a little bit of their head still, but it was really really fun to watch it at that level.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so heck yeah.
So SCV, I can't comment too much on SCV because I got stuck out in the.
Oh really?
Yeah, I missed it.
Oh, did you take a bathroom break or something?
Well, that was intermission, and then I went to go out. And Steven and I were out there getting something to eat, and they were talking to a couple people here and there, and then
you get caught up talking to people. Yeah,
and then we just couldn't get back in enough time, and I was like, oh, damn it! All right, so I missed SCV.
Yeah, but
that was about it.
It's another. They're solidly in the place that they were, and it's good performance overall, right? Yeah. I mean, their members can move and play for sure.
Oh God, yeah. And again, it's another great argument for props because they're wearing on.
No props, yeah.
No props, and they're a 6th place drum corps.
Yep. Yeah, I think they
probably saved $250,000 this year not taking an additional truck with them.
I was going to say, honestly, at this point in time, people always talk about like removing props. I don't even think it's less the buying props part and more the hauling around props part.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to take another semi for some reason. Look at Crown; they have to have a semi plus. Oh no!
Yeah.
So they have a semi for the props
crawler that they used to wheel out the space shuttle.
They had like a 20 or 30 passenger bus, like a little like tow behind for their staff that towed that big, like fuselage or whatever the heck it was.
Ridiculously
that
huge
giant thing. Like it's you're just weighing down. It costs you gas, money, towing it around everywhere. Like it is. They're super expensive. It burns members out. I could tell you that for fact. Like it burns members out. I know.
Yeah.
And you just get tired of it. It's just I don't say it's a waste of time. Like I get why they exist.
Yeah. It's a cost, right?
It is. It
is both an emotional, a work and utility, and a monetary cost.
Yeah. And if you have people that can, I say this all the time, the Cavaliers, they're, when I was there, it was unbelievable working with that drum corps because their members do not mess with their props.
Yeah.
They have an entire support staff. They have an entire support staff system
Unknown
that does that stuff. Yeah. No, we don't do that at Reading, obviously. They have all those violins or cellos or whatever the heck they had on the field this year. And they were put together by a team of people. The members push them on, obviously, because they have to. And
do
all
do
that
some stuff.
But like loading them on the trucks and getting them off the field after practice and everything else, they have a team of people to do that. You know? Awesome. You know what I mean? We're not spending 45 freaking minutes, loading crap and unloading crap every time. Like it just burns people out.
Yeah.
So I do think that if you're doing that correctly, like, they're doing that. The other big thing with SCV, so I trail there from here, the Sanford Trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they won drums.
Crazy. Yeah. I think it's out
of nowhere.
Yeah. So yeah, we've reached the first corps that won a caption award, right? I have slightly mixed feelings. Obviously, I think they deserved it. I'm not going to argue anytime a judge gives a caption award, I'm usually like, they've earned it. Right?
So the caption awards are from 3 nights, right?
Yeah, they're an average of the score from 3 nights.
If you look at the 3 nights, the one night somebody like, and I'm going to get the nights mixed up, but at some point they had, I think it was prelims, they had given Bluecoats a content score of like 9.8. And then they gave Blue Devils score a content of 9.7, and then SCV was like 9.6, the percussion judge.
Wow, yeah.
Right? And then at finals night, they were completely flipped. I think they gave Bluecoats like a 9.5.
No,
or whatever it is.
Finals night, Bluecoats actually won content for drums.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you had it backwards then.
Either way, yeah.
But it was all over the place.
Dropped, and then
if you go back,
it performance.
It was like the last finals night, the first place, the guy who gave him first place was there, and then the third, this prelims, the second night, they were like, it was like 1 and 2.
Yeah.
SCV, there was like 1 on content, 2 on, or vice versa, and then the first night was like 3 and 4 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So like there were 3 different concepts in judges, and this is what I said about the Blue Devils, or in earlier shows.
Yeah.
You had somebody, when you have somebody come out and give just some crazy score, and then the other judge is going, well, I can't completely demolish that score because it's already there. So what do I do? Okay, I have to find out how to bob and weave my way into
it's like
that.
a weird way of almost like politicking the numbers and like having to shift
exactly,
around
and doing that thing.
Yeah,
which I don't know if this is true or not. So I don't know. There's a new Facebook page. It's all about drum corps satire, and I don't know if I read it on this or not too. I'm pretty sure it was like a legitimate post about a DCI has hired an outside contractor to come in and evaluate the judges' scores from like week to week and see if there's major discrepancies from like this to that or this to this to this and this and everything else. Because and again, I don't know if this is satire or not, but like there were like the Bluecoats corps director had commented on it and said, "Yep, we feel like this is the first year that things have been more consistent," which I said too. Like I felt like week to week it made sense. When scores were down because they were bad performances, they were down, and when they were good performances, they were up. All those other kind of things. And guess who had 3 paragraphs of quotes in there about they didn't like the judging this year? No. That would be the Blue Devils. So and I'm like, oh, they're like, well, we don't really understand. Oh, you don't understand because you didn't win this year? Get out of here. So, it's, sorry.
All right.
So anyway, I read it and I was like, I think it's a great, when we start looking at like last year and this year, you look at the Sanford Trophy, because percussion is such a weird thing when it comes to these things, is that you've watched now last 2 years, Cavaliers won.
Cavaliers won it last year.
A 7th place drum corps, won. This year, a 6th place drum corps won the Sanford Trophy. Yeah. So you're winning a caption that low. Does that mean your other corps, your drums are just that significantly better, or everybody else is that worse? Like what's going on there? Because it's very unlikely that the top 3, if not maybe the 4th place, are all your captions. Because to win a caption, you're probably getting a pretty high score, right? So so I think, and this is the second year, again, reading that article, this is the second year that they had that consultancy company or whatever it was come in and take a look at that stuff and go, hey, let's take a look at the judging and like what's going on and talk about those things as a community and go, oh, okay. So now you're starting to see things like this happen where you have drum corps that have really, really great, exceptional writing and members playing in those fields going, there you go. It's okay. You can be in 6th place, 7th place, and be the best drumline or be the best color guard or whatever it is because you just have exceptional programs.
It is curious that I feel like we see a lot of place discrepancies with drum corps and color guard. Not discrepancies in the sense of their mistakes, but just that they're very different from the overall corps placement. Yeah, like we don't see that nearly as much with brass. Yeah. I think just because brass line makes up half the membership, so it's like kind of like if the brass line is doing poorly overall, it's going to drop the GE and the visual and the music. Right? It's going to hurt everything. Whereas perk usually pretty much only affects the music side of things, and a little bit and part of the GE and color guard is only
it's pretty much visual and GE, right? Yeah, we touch all 3 pieces of that, and again we're the music of the organization.
It's the melody and the bulk of membership,
right? Exactly. Right? You're not going to have great GE moments. You can have them, but you're not going to have a lot of them with no brass or anything else involved in what's
I think
going
the
on.
last time I remember brass having that big of a placement discrepancy is like, I'm trying to think, like cadets in 2019 at like San Antonio. They were real. Their brass was like 13th place.
Oh wow. Yeah. Was that bad?
It was rough.
Wow.
Yeah. They got better by the end of the season, but they were struggling in brass that year. Yeah. Which is wild because then they came back in 22 and 23 and had awesome brass lines.
Oh, it's the same thing. Like you just come in and make the corrections necessary, Yeah. When you have groups that are story groups like SCV, again, we talked about this, when they were coming back out at the very beginning, the first show we had, and I was like, you had concerns about them coming back out, the year off. Is it going to be a slump? Is it going to be a snoozer show? And I was like, they have a great drum line. They always have a great drum line. They have like 22 Sanfords or something like that, whatever it is.
So it was impressive to see.
Yeah. So it's cool. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yep. I was a little, I'm always we can talk about this with the other caption awards too, but I'm always a big fan of just whenever someone new wins something new.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of gunning for Boston to get it just because they'd never gotten it before and it'd be cool.
Yeah, I think they got shafted.
Yeah. But also any other year, I would have been kind of like, oh, SCV gets it again.
Yeah, right.
But the fact that they came back and it's like, they're holding on, they're in 6th place, It's not as high as they placed, but I think it's still a really respectable finish, especially in a year of such strong drum corps performances overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
And getting that Sanford is kind of like, it's another little flag they planted, being like, hey, we're still here and we could still deliver.
And you're breaking the mold of what's going on right now in drum corps, with the props and all the heavy stuff, like you came out with nothing and went.
It was cool. And as far as I've heard, I think there's a similar thing with the uniforms too. I think they bought the uniforms kind of like, I think a lot of their show design was not like hodgepodge, but very much like, what can we do within this budget? Right?
Yeah.
Because they're being really money conscious this year, right?
Sure.
Not getting props, right? I'm pretty sure the uniforms were acquired pretty cheaply. Not in like they were made cheaply, but I feel like I heard something about
somebody.
Yeah, but like I think it all makes sense. I think if that is the case, like kudos to them for finding a way. I've talked so much on the show about how constraints can be a great thing for the artistic process. And I think SCV is proof of that. Being like,
totally agree.
All right, well, admin said we don't have the money for props this year. We shouldn't be spending that much on props this year. Let's figure out how to design within that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Or like, hey, we could get a hold of these uniforms. How do we design a show around that? How do we,
Did you hear that, Nick and Steve? You don't need to have props to design shows. For the love of God, I already know he's going to make me so mad. I know they are. They're going to make me so mad.
What if we had 12 sets of unique props this year?
Yeah, right. What if we had?
We had Mike Lark take care of all of them.
We have 37 different, I don't know, square. I don't know what square triangles. Oh my God.
Yeah. We're going to put 4-dimensional test racks on the field this year. You have to figure out how to build them in the present and the future.
Yeah, right. And they all have to have wheels too, so they can roll between the present and future.
Gonna have wheels, And we're going to make them all out of the heaviest wood we can find.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
I will say standout moments for SCV. The little block of... I found the colors in the uniforms were a little overly aggressive sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was still cool and still made it work.
Yeah.
I love the way they incorporate it in the big, like in the hand choreo block.
Oh, yeah.
Like mid to late, partway through the show, like towards the end, they have the whole horn line basically get in a big block and do all this hand choreo.
Yeah.
And it's so cool looking.
Yeah.
Because of the
bright red and
the
blue.
Violently red hands, like just the color pop that they have.
It's very, very cool.
Super
it's
cool.
all like all those Facebook videos or like reels you see or TikToks, what the dudes are doing the hands.
Yeah, like the dance groups that do all that. Yeah, very cool, very reminiscent of that. And also very SCV the past couple of years. It's sort of like almost like hip hop style of movement that has been inspiring in the past couple of years.
Yep.
Cool to see more of that.
Yeah, it was really, really neat. So who that came in 5th place?
Crown.
Oh, yeah.
Which, start talking about, the sort of shakeups in placement besides Troopers being Cavies.
Also too, going into finals, because we skipped over that, is that Cavies had jumped over Troopers because Troopers were over Cavies at East, and then going into Troopers didn't have a show until prelims for like 5 or 6 shows because they got rained out every single one of them. So they walked into prelims or quarters, whatever the heck they're called, in the first show at finals. They walked in there in 11th place and then jumped them. So same idea, Phantom and Crown. I think Phantom went in there technically in 5th place.
Probably.
Yes.
I think so.
I think they did, And then Crown, obviously, the first night they switched, put Phantom in 4th and SC or Crown in 5th.
Yeah.
Which is 100% where they'd absolutely deserve to be.
Yeah. I think, again, another core I was thinking about on the way up here. And you saw the last few episodes or 2 episodes ago, I think. I got a little emotional about Crown. Because, again, it's another instance where I feel like I'm frustrated both as an audience member and as like a fellow marching member, right? Because Crown undeniably has really good members, right? In terms of performance, I think, especially from a brass like moving and playing standpoint, much cleaner than Phantom.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I agree with that.
Really great brass sound. I mean, seeing them live.
Their color guard was really good too.
Yeah, their color guard was great, right?
Yeah.
Lots of solid performances, right? Their drums are usually the weak spot, but I don't even think
they were. I think they were 5th.
They were. Yeah, I think they were 6th.
6th,
so, which makes sense because everyone got bumped down 1 because SCV, right? Again, right? Pretty respectable spot to be in, right? I didn't think they had any particularly weak performance sections, right? Their brass sounds great. It was. I always got to see their. They had a lot of soft dynamic moments that were really impressive to see firsthand. It all just comes down to the design.
Yeah, it's just it's everything we talk about first impressions. It's the color palette. You know, it's just
I know it's like so flat. They finally add a little bit of color that pops with that gold at the end.
Yeah.
But it just felt like too little, too late.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree with it. Yeah, which I totally agree that you should have started like that.
Yeah,
you know, or you have the big gray things over top of them, and they're doing whatever they're doing, and then they pop up rather than going to that orange like.
It's such a muted color.
It's just nothing that just.
Of course, something that pops. Like you especially compare that to the last fire story show that they did.
Yeah,
one of our favorite shows ever, Inferno.
Yeah,
right. Like I get what they were going for, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they wanted to have like a more muted color palette so this colors could, and the color guard and the uniforms at the end could pop more. I get what they were going for, but I just don't think it worked.
Yeah,
and you just end up with a boring color palette for 2/3 of your show.
Yeah,
right. And then we have these performances that they're playing and marching their hearts out, and it just like the uniforms are holding them back.
Yeah,
right.
I agree. And then even the design a little bit too.
Yeah,
the way they used the giant prop, I thought was really cool. I thought it was accented the correct time of the show. It's the same thing. Like, holy crap, the thing's huge.
Yeah,
it's ginormous. When we saw it at our home show, I was like, "Oh my god, that thing!"
Oh yeah, we had to see it in person, and we were like, "Oh, like, jeez,
it is huge."
I mean, they have to have like
getting off the field,
15 to 20 people.
Yeah, getting off the field, there's like 15, 20 dudes back there just
trying to like, a lot of color guard members too.
Just like, oh my god, like they're trying to pull it down. Yeah, it's wild. It's so freaking big.
Yeah, and, it's so big and. As much as you said, it's cool when they have the moments on there. They have a lot of color guard moments on there.
The opening set and the fire thing when it's coming down is really, really impressive.
It's really cool.
It's super cool. But I said this before. It's like they designed the entire show. It's like they designed the first 2 minutes of the show and said, this is going to be a banger. And then they forgot to design the rest of the show.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, because it's awesome.
It's one of the biggest challenges of having a big prop on the field.
Yeah.
Is it's on the field.
Yeah.
Whether or not your designer wants it to be or not. Right?
So it's the designer's choice, though. I mean, he's the one who designs it.
It feels like it feels almost like you shoot yourself in the foot, where you're like, oh, we got this big prop, we got this big cool opening moment. And then you design the second and third movements of the show, and it's like, we got this big prop here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What
do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost honestly, it was so big that I think you lose. There was some solar performers on there. I think you lose them.
I didn't see him half the time. I was trying to figure out where the souls were coming from a couple of times.
Where's the souls? And you look and you have to like squint and be like, I think there's a guy on top of that.
Yeah, and again, the color palette just does not.
Again, if you had something that popped against the design of the big torch, right, it would work a little better.
Yeah, it's it's a neat story. Again, it's a hard.
Yeah. And I want to like Crown. I love they've been historically one of my favorite cores.
Yeah. They sound so good. I remember I was sitting down close and I heard the mellophone line come in at one section. I was like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, whoa.
Fantastic.
I was like,
line.
God, they sound so good. And I was like, now I get it. Okay. Now I understand. Like, cause you hear it, but then when you hear it live, and you hear it right in front of your face comparative to the other drum corps mellophone lines that are going on. I was like, no. I don't know what they're feeding them. I don't know what they're doing, but it's just a different sound and it sounds freaking great. Yep. And I'm like, okay, now I understand why they're scoring as high as they were. Like the GE's not there because it's just, it has moments of GE. Just, it was flat.
Yeah. I just, the entire the opening is cool.
Yep.
And there's like some moments, but overall, I think it's effective at what it does.
Oh no, yeah, it's great.
I
love the whole opening.
Or maybe I would call it probably second and third movements, the more fast moves before the ballad. Both of those, just the whole time, I just like they would get me for like 5 seconds.
Yep.
They would have a cool brass moment, but it's like it just doesn't flow. Something about it just doesn't connect. It sounded like they're like cool brass moment, neat brass moment, neat brass moment, neat brass moment, right?
Yeah.
But then the sum of their parts is like less than each individual.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's a cool, it's a cool thing to take little snippets of, but just doesn't, it's something about it doesn't work together. It's just, like you said, it feels very flat. I think in the visual, I said this last time, in the visual design, I think is a similar thing.
Yeah.
Crown is a core that has prided themselves in really, really difficult and demanding visuals.
Yeah.
In this entire show, I'm like, they're marching at 7.5 to 5 again.
Look out now.
Oh yeah, they're marching at 7.7 to 5 again.
Yeah, they're doing it well.
They're doing it well. It's just like It's just very like, let's move to this form. Let's move to this form. Let's move to this. There were very few, if any, visual moments past the opener where I was like, ooh, cool visual thing they did there. It's just like, it's just drill that like is fine. You know,
honestly,
serves the purpose it does.
I'd say right now you talk about it the same way that I feel about the Blue Devils every year before this year. Yeah, it's just the same thing. I like letting it go.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing right now? That's so impressive. It's getting you a first place.
Yeah.
Because I don't get it. You know what I mean? Okay, you're moving over there. Good for you. Oh, you're standing still a little while. Look at that. You're doing an 8 to 5 slowly. You know, like, okay. You know, your legs look great at, 120. Good job, guys. It's so, and yeah, that is what it is. But it's very like watching that show felt very much like watching a Blue Devil show from the last couple of years.
For you, yeah.
For me personally, it's like I see what you're doing. The stuff's hard.
Exactly,
it's clean. I get it. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm like, I get what you're going for. It's just
give me some more?
just not landing. Yeah,
yeah. The difference between the two is that one's jazz, so it's a little bit more fun, and the other one's kind of like boring orchestral music. So if it's not focused correctly and built correctly, you can't pull GE out of that because there's no. There's no
like big moments. Yeah. It's like they have the opening hit, they have the ballad at certain points, and they have like maybe the closing set.
Yeah.
Their whole closer too. I'm like, I was really excited. I like a lot of John Mackey's work.
Yeah.
But just the whole closer, I'm like,
yeah, that's not
okay.
It felt like a written piece for the show, but for a totally different show.
I know. I feel like I just don't remember any part of it. Yep. Crown set was cool. Yeah, they keep adding the mellow lick in.
Yes,
which it's
cool. I like it.
I almost felt a little insulted by it the first time I saw it because I was like, it feels like when you watch modern movies and they go, hey, remember this thing, right? Reference. Right. It felt like that a little bit, but also I'm like, I try to be.
Here's what it is, right? For me, it's like seeing Phantom kick the leg out.
Exactly.
It's like seeing them go, and doing the whole thing. Like those things. It's Blue Knights doing the prep step.
Doing the prep step, right?
Everybody has their thing.
I came around to it.
That's what I feel like it was.
I was like,
oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I think it is a little bit of them trying to slap a Band-Aid on there to be like, oh, how do we do memorable moments? But I'm also like, if I was a mellow player and they're like, hey, we're gonna add the lick in, I'd be like, yes. Exactly. So cool. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm sure it was a really cool thing for the members to get to add that in. So
I think it's a cool thing for the fans too. Like,
exactly.
I loved it the second I heard it, and I was like, "Thank you for trying to be Crown." You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like,
trying to remember.
We say this all the time. In the age of drum corps trying to reinvent themselves and looking different every year, and it's hard to figure out who's who. Like, give me something that I can hold on to.
Yeah.
Give me something that tells me this is who you are because I love you as an organization. I love the Crown thing, and I really was happy. And as far as I know. I could be totally wrong on this. Internet, check me on this. It's the first time they've ever put the crown on an angle.
It's the first time I can think of it.
Yeah, so I don't think every other time it's always flat. I've seen a double crown. It's full of the big crown or like whatever.
I'm not
else,
sure they would. I don't know when they would ever do it on an angle again. I think this year it was done because of just the way the
prop and everything was set up.
The giant prop that draws your eye to side too.
Yeah.
And the fact that the rest of the field is staged in a way to sort of draw attention to that. I think it made sense to put it on an angle. I thought it was cool. Right?
I liked it.
I'm curious if people far on side one or side two were like, what the heck what's going on? Why is everyone cheering?
Yeah. It's, what it is for me? I like, and I think every drum corps fan likes it. You like things that are consistent from year to year that they find a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if you go back and watch the early 2000s Cavaliers, like in the 90s or the late 90s, they were doing the cutters, right?
Yeah, the diamond cutters.
The diamond cutters. And then they did they did a couple of them. Like, oh, that's so cool. Then the next year they put the big triangle, the big diamond, and then they did diamond cutters all the way through it.
Yeah.
And then the next year there was all those plus a diamond cutter in the middle, and like you just kept adding to it. And it's like, oh, that's what I want to see, but it's better.
The ways I don't think they could pull this off this year because I don't think they marched clean enough. But Crown kept doing 3D rotating geometric drill.
Yeah.
They had the cube in 2012 and the diamonds in 13 and 15.
Yep.
Right. Another cool way you're like, oh, they're bringing out, they're doing a new shape this year.
Yeah, exactly. I like it when it's like a stamp on a designer's concept, and then with the organization too.
Yeah, and then they find ways to tweak it, right? And
just make it throw it in there randomly, or it's a little bit different. I love that personally. I love it. So
I think I don't know. I hope this year or probably next year is going to be a wake up call for Crown.
Listen. There's not a lot of movement going on in a lot of things. Other than we didn't talk about that. I wanted to talk about that about the Troopers too. But anyway, the Troopers just fired their entire visuals. And I'm friends on Facebook with the lead visual guy, right? I don't know him personally, but I'm
like the caption head.
we're connected to him, and he was just like the first post he put up about it, which was like a day after finals. He's like, you could tell it was out of the blue.
Yeah,
like you could very much tell like he was appreciative of like your normal caption head stuff, like is appreciative of what's going on and all those other things too. But it was kind of out of the blue, and he's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like where did this?
Why
come
is
from?
this here? You know, like, and who knows? I don't know why, and I'm sure like
I said, like
internal things are internal things. Like things happen.
Yeah.
You never know what happens with people, or how like you just don't know. But
so like
I look at it and
maybe
go,
they. I don't know. Maybe troopers got wind that some other really good Viz staff or Viz team was looking to come to them, or like
that's what I hope it's not.
Yeah, because it would feel kind of.
Because that's how you destroy organizations, right? When you see people that put in so much time, energy, and effort to loving and building, and especially when you're coming from not finals to in finals, and then growing in finals.
If that was the case, right, and that's what's happening, and I was on, say, the brass staff or the color guard or the percussion staff, I'd be kind of like
next.
Yeah, I'd be like, am I going to be on the chopping block, or should I start looking for a different place to jump to next year?
Right, exactly.
Right?
You know, what kind of loyalty are we really talking about here? And again, that's not saying that that's not the case. And there's not other things going on. But if you were an organization or you're in an organization and you see people doing that, you know, there are plenty enough times when there are administration and members or other staff people don't click and get along, and they're not copacetic, and then you have to make changes because of something else. Because I've been in places where the visual staff's been there for plenty enough years. The brass staff chose to leave, and then they brought a new brass staff in who was doing extremely well. They did not click with the visual staff. So now we got to go, what's going on? And then the following year, the visual staff left because so you had to because the brass staff is there. Like you have sometimes you have people that, I mean, that's what the coordinator is supposed to do, is find like-minded individuals,
job does,
you know, and figure out those things and make sure everybody's happy and doing the right things, and everybody gets their peace and time and whatnot. So, but anyway,
so I'm very curious to see what happens.
So anyway, that was a little throwback. So
I hope Crown's design team either figures their stuff out and vastly changes their approach, or they bring some new people on.
Yeah,
it's like that's a team. Like you were talking about how for troopers it felt pretty out of the blue, right? If I had heard about the Crown design team getting canned and bring new people in, like, I'm not saying they should, but like I would get it, because I think it's a
that design team's
glaring weak point.
That design team's been there for a while, right? I think that they're trying new things that aren't working.
Exactly. I never want anyone to get kicked out of their job, so I'm like, I want you to just get better at it. Or to
better is so relative, right? Because you like, we talk about innovation all the time, right? And we both of us like that. Like, we don't want to see drum corps stay stagnant. So you can't innovate without trying new things. Yeah. And if what you're trying isn't working, sometimes you can't just do it a year and be like, well, this doesn't work.
Although I don't know.
We're not the Cleveland Browns of quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be like, let's throw 7 quarterbacks in this year and see if it works.
For me, it does. It feels like those last few years, Crown Design has been suffering because it's felt stagnant.
I agree with that.
They're trying to do the same, like, let's do these story shows again. Let's have, and I'm like, I don't know. It feels like
the same bad.
If they were able to keep delivering on story shows the way they were in 14, 15, and 16 and all those great story years, I'd be like, yeah, sure, keep doing it. But like, something about it, I don't know. I think they just.
I mean, look at
if they're trying new things.
19 was a cool year.
Yeah, also not a story year though, right?
I
think that year their visual and brass were innovating in a very cool way.
Yeah, exactly.
I think everyone talked rightfully so about Blue Devils as usual, and like SCV's visual design that year. Crown's visual design that year was super cool. Super unique.
Yeah, very unique.
Right.
Yeah,
and they
crazy hard too.
They've lost. Oh yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's ridiculously hard. So yeah,
Yeah, I hope we see some changes. I wouldn't be surprised if next year they drop a little more as they're trying to figure out.
I'm willing to give it one more shot. I'm willing to give it one more year.
Yeah, I would love to see him turn around next year. I just think realistically, it might take him 1 or 2 more years to like pull up out of the.
I mean, here's the thing:
design funk.
Their horn line is still absolute slam. I mean, they still have they're still the pedigree of being the Carolina Crown right now.
Yeah, but also I think they lost a little bit of that this year. I mean, if you look at the scores, they still ended up in second place overall, but they got they got first. They got just barely by 0.05. They got first in achievement. They got third in content, right behind Devils.
Okay,
rightfully so. I think. I don't know. Like, I think Crown's brass, like you said, still has that pedigree. They still sounded great.
Yeah.
but I personally did not feel that excited about Crown's Brass because the writing was just
and that's what I mean. Yes. Meh. So you're still getting good members, right? And like the writing always has to be there, the design always has to be there. And if it's not, you can't. Yeah, I want to say punish this. You can't punish the members with a score. Like the concept of that, Crown is still drawing incredible members. Yeah, the people who want to play and move still go there.
But I don't know. I don't know how next year's going to look because
there's only 80 kids going to Bluecoats. There's only 80 kids going to Devils. I mean,
they're always going to bring in great talent. All those top 5 or 6 quarters.
That's my point. You're going to get the talent. It's always there. But the training is there still. Yeah. Harloff isn't leaving anytime soon as far as I know. Yeah. So the training is available. It's you just got to put together a book that's going to be challenging enough to showcase what it is. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the initial quality of membership in terms of playing takes a bit of a dip next year. I feel like, if I was a brass player, you go to Crown because you're like,
I want to play Crown.
Oh yeah, I want to play Crown, and I want to win a knot.
Yeah.
I want to Jamot. So in a year where like not that many people were talking about your brass as much as in previous years, and you don't win the Jamot, I'd be kind of like, well, okay, we got 5th, and not that many people are talking about our show, and we didn't win the Jamot. Maybe I marched Crown this year. Maybe next year I'm going to go to Devils or Coats. Well,
I mean, look at the last time they placed 5th was 18, right? Because Beast was a 5th place show.
No, Beast was
4th. Was that a 4th place show?
I think it was 4th place.
I thought that was I keep thinking it's a 5th place. You're probably right. It's a 4th place. I think you've corrected me once before.
Yeah, I think 14 they got 5th place.
Okay, so let's just say the Beast year because that was a pretty rough year.
Yeah,
right?
That was last year. They didn't play super well competitively.
And then in 19 they came out and won the odd. So
yeah, again, rightfully so, right?
Maybe next year that's what happens.
Yeah, But again, I think it's honestly. I think their brass line plays super well. I think they had the potential to win the yacht this year. They just wrote a bad book.
Yeah, you can't win with a bad book. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Not a bad book, but you can't with the
for
the
Crown
book,
standards.
For the book necessary, we'll just say it's not bad. It's better than somebody else's. Yeah. Right. Because that's really all what it boils down to is not if it's good or bad. It's whether or not it's the best one.
Yeah. There's always this big asterisk whenever we're talking about, especially these top cores being like certain bars that are being good or bad. Usually
none of them are bad.
It just means below or above their standard.
Correct. Yes. Right. I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I always say, Crown's Brass had an off year in X or Y. I'm like, they didn't sound bad.
No, they're still credible.
Their Crown did not sound bad in 2018. They just didn't sound as good in the previous years.
This sound crowny. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of brass books that sounded incredible this year.
Yeah.
Our favorite show.
Our fan favorite. Phantom. What have we not said already about Phantom?
I saw that up close and personal. And besides Steven yelling in my ear the entire time.
I love that show. Everyone does. It was one of the best designed shows this entire year.
Here's what I'll tell you. The last 2.5 minutes of that show, people were on their feet.
Oh yeah,
I was like, oh okay, we're doing
honestly.
This.
I think in terms of longest standing ovations, it was them and Troopers.
Yeah.
Because both of them
had big.
They had great closers. They were fan favorites, and specifically they designed big moments while they still had like a minute of show left.
Yep. Yeah.
Right,
and just killed it.
The guy killing the devil and Troopers, and I think that's right when like the ba-bum 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 like that. Yeah. Like people, I got to see that. That was a cool thing I got to see from the sideline was the entire crowd just rise up at that moment. And Phantom has a similar as soon as those mellows enter, or as soon as the
box starts, as soon as the box gets there and that there's like a lull in sound, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. People were just like, let's go. Yeah, people were standing up just screaming. It was so loud in the stands, I couldn't hear the horn line playing. Yeah. That is how loud. Part of it was you. So
yeah, which is amazing because that is not quiet horn line.
No, it is not at all. I almost felt
and they're 4 feet from you.
Yeah, I was in row 18. I was close, and
you could spit and hit one of the members.
They're pretty freaking close, and like it was hard for me to hear it. I almost wish I was sitting a little bit higher because they project up a little bit.
Yeah, because they're all pointing up further.
I was just the littlest bit, and this is a personal thing, just disappointed because I just wanted to hear, and there were so many.
The sound.
I wanted to, and I just couldn't hear it. There was too much ambient noise with everybody going bonkers.
Success.
Yeah. It was. Oh God, it was so freaking cool.
Yeah, because I think they did. Going back to that decibel rating thing, I'm pretty sure Fan did get like the highest. Fan response.
Oh yeah, it was like 107 or something. It's ridiculous. Everybody's watches were going off, going like, "Hey, you should probably step away from wherever you are."
Yeah, hearing aid. Yeah, hearing damage. just like such a cool energy to be a part of, to see a show that is so beloved by
literally everybody loved it. There wasn't a single person out there. And even if you didn't think it should have scored that high, or you didn't really get it, you cannot tell me you didn't love parts of that show. You're not a drum corps fan if you didn't love parts of that show.
It's so good. And the kids are performing the hell out of it.
Like, I can get behind some of that stuff. Like the solos, like if you want to be curmudgeon-y, they're a little gratuitous there for a second. But they're, I mean, if you're a brass player, oh my God, are you kidding me?
It's fly or die. It is like the premier show off how good you are at bass trombone piece.
Yeah. Did you see that? I sent it to you the other day. It's the trombone cam.
Oh no!
You should check your messages. It's him playing it, which is really cool because when they synthesize like the back end of it, you can just hear him playing the trombone part.
Yeah,
so
they do a cool. They do a cool, which I love. I love the
50-50 on it.
Yeah,
but
I think
it grew on me a little bit, but I don't know.
I think it's cool. I appreciate that the solo is long enough and featured enough that you get to hear some raw, just good brass playing, and then they put some cool effects on it that I think works.
Yeah.
That guy's a beast.
An absolute monster.
Age out?
He has to be. I don't know.
Gotta be.
I'm sure.
If he's not, then I can't wait to see what kind of insane.
I can't wait to see what they're going to write from next year.
I haven't played two trombones at once.
I mean, like that show is just great. I mean, again, like you said, there's nothing we can't say about it that hasn't already been said. Like
exactly.
You've watched it. I think all the recaps were great. They were right where they were supposed to be. I think somebody finally, gave them the credit toward the end of the season. They just kept building and it just kept getting better. And
I think this year was great for like. Some people might disagree with this, but I think overwhelmingly all the placements lined up with audience reaction.
Yeah,
right.
I agree with that.
Everyone got to see fan favorite shows jump and move up in placement because most of the time if a show's a fan favorite, it's because it's got really good GE.
Yeah,
and GE's
I get to
half the sheets.
If the show is a fan favorite, most of the time it's because it's a member favorite.
Yep.
Right, because members love playing it. Last year in 23, when we were playing our show, I loved playing our show.
Yeah,
and scores showed and all that kind of good stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, and it felt like a great year performance and scoring wise because we were
feeling it. Yeah. Everybody was feeling it. It was such a good show.
I think, and to attest to that, to go back to a previous year to like 22, you and I both marched in that. That was a show that it just didn't. It had production and design and performance issues that just like we didn't believe in the show for the longest time.
No, not at all.
And I think that reflected in the mid-season scores.
Yep.
Where sometimes some other corps like Cavs beat us a few shows.
Yeah.
And we just like didn't believe in the show, and I think that showed up in the performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, in the last 3 weeks, we finally made the changes. We finally just like it clicked.
Oh, that stupid middle piece.
Shofukan.
Yeah, God,
we finally got it into a workable position, and like we finally believed in the show.
Yeah,
and then suddenly we started scoring much higher because, like you said, if the members like the show,
the audience is going to like the show too. Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, there's not a single person in the crowd that can't say that they loved marching that show. I can't imagine that. There's nobody.
I'm sure some people really liked it, but I think. You could feel it just,
I can't even fathom the crowd response and being a marching member of that group and feeling that. And it's crazy as you watch the video. I watch a bunch of videos of like up closes and everything else too. And those kids are just like, we're done. And I was like, you guys aren't losing your shit right now? Because I know I would be. Watching people stand for 2 minutes as I am crushing sound out of whatever the freak I'm playing.
Yeah.
And then like I did. I mean, it's unreal. It's such a cool show. I loved it. So I don't want to harp too much on it because I keep talking about it. I could do a whole hour episode on just that.
We might have an episode coming up, some kind of episode where we take a deeper dive into that show, maybe some other shows specifically. A little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, you never know. You have to come back and check it out if you're still watching.
As we diversify our content portfolio.
Ooh, wow, very nice. Yeah.
All right, then. So let's talk about then third place. Your favorite,
my
Blue
favorite.
Devils.
And I said, and I'm telling you right now, I said it again. The very first episode when we talked about before we saw any shows this year and scores were out, I said that's a third place show.
Yeah,
and so I saw it live. I got it more. I tell you the one thing I figured out live, watching it live, was the big horses.
Oh, you figured out? I didn't figure out the big horses. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a carousel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
it's a
that's the only
carousel
like.
feeling.
I mean, it's so there's that one section where they do like the little carousel music thing, and they're going around in circles, and it's a carousel. It's when they're over in the corner before they do the big flap.
Yeah,
around.
I mean, I was
oh, now I get it. Now I understand what the heck that's.
I
I'm
was
like,
just accepted it as vaguely
as
romanticism era.
As Blue Devils, like, yeah, we'll put horses on the field because fuck, it,
yeah. But so yeah, I think I just watched a headcanon with Blue Devils, and it is the Blue Devil shows are always filled with great little moments where they do something and you go, only the Blue Devils could pull that off.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I agree with that still. It's still this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Even this year, there's so many cool little moments. So much of the cape choreography that works. You kind of watch it and I'm like, only the Blue Devils could do that.
Yep.
There's this section, it's maybe my favorite little moment. Is when like they're about like 2 or 3 minutes into the show, they all go, they spread out in this big wide grid that covers basically the whole field, and they're all just swaying.
Yes, I saw that. It's really,
and I watched
really cool.
it. I'm like, how are they doing that?
So cool.
I'm like, how are they? It's a slow movement. They're all facing backwards and down, and they're all perfectly in sync.
Yeah. And it's not just them; it's the cape. They're moving the cape correctly.
The cape is swaying in time, and I remember watching that and being like,
so cool.
How do they do that?
Yeah,
and then a cool like they bring the horns up and they just like whoosh, they spin around in like a single count.
Yeah,
and it's so clean and so in time.
Yeah,
I'm like, that is once again like that's something only the Blue Devils could do.
So here's a crazy thing, right? Because everybody who's watched this podcast knows how much I shit on the Blue Devils all the time.
Yeah,
I was in the stands and people were talking trash about the Blue Devils. And I was like, they weren't talking trash about it. They're like, "Does somebody please help me understand the show because I don't get it." And I was like, "Hold on."
If you have not said, before you're parroting yourself for the last 2 years.
Yeah. And that was the first thing I asked. I was like, "Did you understand last year's show and the show before that?" And they were like, "Yeah, I totally understood it." And I was like,
"That's shocking to me.
You're an idiot." And I was like, first off, I was like, I understood the show the very first time I watched it. I was like,
yeah.
I understood. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm more educated than you. I don't know. Like, that can't be the case.
Maybe me, big brain.
Yeah,
more than you.
Maybe smart man. I don't know. I was like, but I was like explaining, and I was like, watch. And I was with Tex and Julian, and he didn't understand it either. And that dude writes shows, and I'm like, how do you not understand this, man? Like, you've been watching drum corps for 30 freaking years.
Yeah.
Like this is what it is, and I explained it to him. Like the pulling off and like the decaying sections and like all the drill that doesn't quite fit, and like every block or anything else that has a person missing from it because it's all about connecting and reforming and like all this stuff. I was like, I got that the very first time I watched it. It's one of the reasons why I like this show. It's the first Blue Devil show I've liked in years.
Yeah,
because it had a concept that made sense. It was easy to follow if you just watched the show.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is for all my Blue Devils fans out there, if you didn't understand it this year, it was because you're used to seeing garbage that doesn't make any sense.
And you're garbage, just like, but yeah.
You're used to seeing stuff that's like, oh, jazz, clap hands, and it's just, I don't understand it because you're looking for the same old Blue Devil stuff that didn't occur this year, which I thought was awesome. I enjoyed that show so much.
I enjoyed this show much more than the previous 2 years of Blue Devils.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
It was absolutely. It was 100% a better show than the last 2 years.
I guarantee you, I will rewatch and re-listen to the show much more than the last 2 years of Blue Devils.
Yes,
right?
100%. I have felt the urge to go back and rewatch it once or twice already.
Yeah, because they did something new with their design, and I also think as much as Blue Devils, I don't think they had one of the harder shows this year, and I don't think they usually don't have one of the more, in terms of physical demand. Technical demand, they're always up there at the top.
Yeah, musical technical demand is crazy.
Oh yeah, their music book was crazy this year for brass. But I will say, especially sometimes you got to watch headcams to get a real sense for it. They were moving a good amount. They were running a good amount for this show. A lot of times not while they were playing, but even like while they were playing, doing some like not huge jazz run, but a few jazz runs,
That was the reason why I told you that they were going to be in third place the first time I watched the show.
Yeah.
Because they're moving.
They do
I'm like, they're
tend to-
finally moving this year, so you're not going to win. Sorry.
Yeah, that does tend to be a pattern for Blue Devils.
It's an absolute pattern.
2013, their show was the most inaccessible I think a Blue Devil show has ever been. It's the Rewrite of Spring.
Oh, okay.
It's basically, it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
It's basically like if the Rite of Spring was a jazz album, I think is the general idea.
More jazz. Got it.
But you watch it and it's just the most boring and inaccessible thing. It's so, I remember we watched it on the 2013 weekend.
Yeah.
We watched it on the 2013 weekend. You were there.
Did I? No, I wasn't there. I don't think
It was in your house, so I'm pretty sure you were there. But that's a testament to how
boring it was.
Just forgettable, but also way harder. Probably the hardest show Blue Devils has done in years.
Yeah, yeah.
Very physically demanding show, and they didn't win with it.
Right.
Yeah, because I think it was close to Crown's show that year. I think they didn't have a runaway victory, but again, I think Blue Devils does tend to drop and not win when they do harder shows.
You mean the same level of difficulty that everybody else is trying to achieve? Okay, got it. All right. So anyway,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's a.
I will say this: nobody does a company front better than the Blue Devils.
Yeah.
I hate saying that they do anything better than anybody else, but
certain things they do. I mean, like I said, I watch their head cam and you see some of their visuals are so snappy.
Yeah.
Still in a way that like nobody else can do, nobody else does.
Yeah.
It's just their overall package. I just think, honestly, it's just overall their marching wasn't. I think this was a year where we started to see the judges value marching and playing more, and Blue Devils just didn't deliver on that in the way they usually do.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. They were so visually dirty this year.
Yeah.
You know,
once again, asterisk for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, correct.
Right? For a top three core.
Yeah.
So I will say though, and this is the biggest actually a minus comment ever. They have that really cool moment where they make the big diag on the field.
Yeah, the company front, right.
And I'm sure probably from where you looked, it looked awesome.
Yeah,
right.
It looked fantastic. It looked perfect.
I was in quite literally the perfect spot to see if it was perfect or not.
Yeah.
And the back end, swayed a little bit. Well, it's only something you would notice if you are in the 600s
and
on side one.
Listen, Lou says this all the time. Zay9 says this all the time. You need to understand your left and right responsibilities.
Yep.
Because from the front, nobody can tell front to backs.
Yep.
So
from anyone in the judging, it's only because I was looking literally right down the barrel.
Line. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And for what it's worth, the first 70% of the line and the first 70% of the line from the front to the back was perfect.
Yeah.
I remember honestly, I think it only looks a lot of times you see company fronts and they're a little bit dirty, but if the whole line is the same amount of dirty and they're clean enough, it looks fine.
Right.
I think the back end only really stuck out because
the first
of
half,
how good the rest of it looked.
That makes sense.
And because, like I said, it was on the perfect angle to see it.
Yeah, and if you watch them, the ends going into their sets, they're flying into their sets, and then they're sprinting into the company, from that to flat.
And they're moving during that company front.
Yeah, cruising.
It is still very impressive, but I was just it was one of those things where I was if you're gonna have the big F you, we make a big straight line moment, I'm gotta make it perfect.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it looked pretty perfect from the front.
Exactly. I'm sure from the judges box that set looked awesome.
It was incredible. Every time I watched it, I was like,
and it was more. They did the big line thing in 22, and it was very impressive then. But I remember being frustrated because they rotated it and they broke off right before it clicked on the 50.
See, I thought that was really neat.
I thought it was neat, but I also thought it felt
like it didn't finish.
It felt like cheating a little bit.
Yeah.
I was hit the line. I don't know. And then this year
they rotate it pretty far.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a pretty far rotation.
And this year I think they did deliver on having it there for long enough that you can really see it.
Well, it flattens
and appreciate it for a while. Yeah.
You look at the 22 line too. Not only is it rotating, but then it's rotating and it's collapsing into itself.
Yeah. It is a really cool drill move.
That is ridiculous. I remember watching that going, screw you guys. That's a super cool move.
Yeah. And again, and that was one of their, just like the big line in 2014, which is still maybe the most impressive drill thing I've seen ever. It was their big, hand it over. Hand over the gold medal right now. That was their moment in 22.
That must be when that extra point and a half they didn't deserve came from. So 99.65. Bite me. So anyway.
So I think to summarize, I think any other year it could have been a championship or potentially at least second place show.
Yeah.
But for the first time since 2006, the Blue Devils did not end up in the top two.
Yeah, wild.
And I don't think, as much as we sometimes bag on some of their cleanliness, I really don't think it was because they dropped in quality all that much.
No, I don't think so either.
It was really just because our top two were just
lights out.
Just amazing.
Crazy. They were so good.
I think the first year since I can remember in drum corps where we had what I think is two championship worthy shows that were not the Blue Devils, right?
Yeah, we said that. I said it to everybody that passed by. It's it's too bad that Boston made this show this year.
I know. Any other year,
that would have been
I think
against
Coats the last 2 years, against Blue Devils this year, they would have beaten them.
Honestly, I think they would have beat Blue Devils the last 2 years.
I don't think they would have beaten them last year. They were too clean last year. Blue Devils.
I don't know. I mean, they were.
I didn't like their show as much, but it was just.
It was a very Blue Devils show last year.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of standing still.
I just think it was nails in terms of visual cleanliness.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, it's not. It's a first place show. Yeah. Like, as much as I want to crap on it all the time, like, it's still good. You know.
Yeah.
It's just.
But either way, Boston this year, championship worthy show, awesome. There is no other show that grew on me as much as theirs did.
Yes.
You can go
Every
back.
time I watched it, I found something new I liked about it.
And you can go back to the early season stuff. I did not like their uniforms. I did not like the show design that I'd seen snippets of. I didn't like the music I'd seen snippets of, or I wasn't crazy about it. I was kind of like, it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's good. Right.
And every single time I watched it, I was like, this rules.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The uniforms look awesome on the field. They look great.
They look great.
I was so concerned about how it looked visually, and I still think there are moments where it generates a tiny bit of extra dirt, but they're clean enough that I think it just didn't matter much by the end.
They look incredible, you know, and
they move great.
Musically,
they sound
unbelievable,
amazing.
Yeah.
The brass line sounds like Crown.
They sound. I mean, they sounded better than Crown.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, really.
Yeah, and a lot of points.
Yeah, they were just. I mean, it was a great show.
Again,
that was a show that I appreciate as an audience member because every time I watched it, I found something new about it that I didn't see the previous time.
Yeah.
Which means there's all these little hidden things throughout it that I was like, oh, look at that. Oh, that's super neat. So it's one of the things, like, as a fan, I get to go back and I'm probably going to watch it a couple more times. It wasn't my favorite show of the season.
It's up there. I know it was a lot of people's favorite shows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was great, you know, but it wasn't my favorite show, but it is a show that I will go back and rewatch because I want to see if I can find something else new.
Yeah,
because there's so many hidden little things in it, so many hidden gems.
There's so much cool stuff going on.
It's all performance stuff, you know, little member performance things that are just snuck in there because they're fun, you know.
Exactly.
And again, it's another show. You can tell that the members are really excited to perform, and they were really like jazzed on. Yeah,
I like my favorite little moment that they added in later season. There's a section of brass doing partner choreo.
Yeah.
First of all, they do piggyback rides in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
And you can see it's the guard members getting by the brass, but then for a few it's switched because I think the brass member is just much smaller than the guard members. So they're like, I guess you guys just flip.
Yeah.
And then they did the thing where the guard duet does a handstand and they like pull their legs apart and like there's a low brass note and they all go, oh yeah. We got to see that live at the downtown show that we hosted. And it was so fun. It was I think it's up there with Phantom as the most fun show this year.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Just like great quality and sonority of performance, and just a fun, just such an enjoyable show to watch.
It is a show that both a person who loves drum corps and somebody's grandma can enjoy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
My parents were at the downtown show.
Yeah,
and they were like, they were so good.
Yeah.
They were shocked when I told them that was not the first place corps. They were like, how are they not winning? I was like, first of all, they're doing amazing.
Yeah, right.
They're like, they're as good as you think they are. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But it's just, like you said, any other year, I think it would have been championship worthy show.
It's absolutely a championship
and
show.
I think, I hope everyone at Boston is very proud of how they did.
Yeah.
Because I think, first of all, pretty sure highest placement or highest score they've ever got.
I think so.
In a way, I think you could argue highest placement. Like,
I know they tied for second.
Technically, they got second in 22,
this
but
is a solo second.
A solid second probably feels better than a tied second.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I mean, it is the last 3 years,
especially
of
when it's a
Boston
tied,
shows.
especially when it's a solid second that has beat the Blue Devils.
Yes,
that's got to be a cool
Which
feeling.
is, again, we said it before in a previous one. Like, beating them for one show is one thing; beating them at finals is another thing.
Yeah, consistently holding. I mean, when was the last time the
Boston
BD passed them? I think as soon as they tied.
When Boston passed them, that was the last time.
Yeah,
Boston.
Which is like good on you because Blue Devils. We would say this: Blue Devils are dangerous at finals.
Yeah.
Right. And so the fact that Boston was able to keep that heat up, I mean, just like,
and you could tell this was the first year that I watched Boston in the last 2 years that they got better each night.
Yeah.
You could tell the energy was there. Whatever, either it's because the show design was so good, they were hyped about it, the members were just in a different place, or maybe the staff adjusted and the admin adjusted some of their finals prep and how they did that, because we talked about that before. Like, what are they doing the week of finals? Because there's really not that much to clean at that point. You know, like
You're not gonna make huge leaps.
When you're in first, second place, you're so freaking clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not doing too much to murder your members anymore because they're in good shape. They're doing the things they're supposed to. You
shouldn't be doing that. At least.
You shouldn't be, right? But that's the worry, is that I don't know what their schedule looked like the last 2 years, but they looked tired at finals. This year they did not. I thought they looked great. They were very energetic. You could tell they loved the show. They loved performing it. You know, all the dumb light stuff with the hat, you know, was really, really fun. Like
all super fun,
it's just a fun show. Like you can tell it's fun the whole way through.
And it's one of those shows that, again, anyone's grandma who's never seen drum corps can watch it and get it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, oh, totally, it's just a show about like electronics and glitches.
Yep.
And neat stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the guard. I mean, guard won. So you know we always got to say that too.
Another caption award. Another caption award.
And well deserving.
Well deserved. Yeah, such a dominant guard for the past 5 seasons or something.
Since 18, or I think they won in 18. So so 6 years now.
Yeah, just awesome guard.
Yeah, they're great.
I think this is the first year. I think Boston's design team has finally ironed out the kinks that were keeping them from being as good as they were this year. This is the first year where they have incorporated, maybe last year they did this pretty well, where they incorporated popular music and it did not completely take me out of the moment.
Okay, I got you.
Previous years, like, 22 was their best performing year previously.
19 was terrible. I hated that year. You know,
I loved parts of that year, but then they would sing Hamilton, and I'd be like,
"Get that out of it." Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about. Is the popular music that kind of just destroys the show.
It just completely would ruin the flow.
Yeah.
And finally, this year they figured out how to write and arrange to put popular music in. They used True Colors as both their ballad piece and as
like an overarching
central
theme,
motif the whole time. And it finally clicked.
Yeah.
I went, oh, this is True Colors, and not, oh, this is True Colors.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Like, okay. Or like, okay, enough's enough. You know, because sometimes it's too much. You know? Stop trying to ram this down my throat.
Yeah.
So
super great. Trying to think of other, so many fun little visual moments.
Yeah. Just so many really cool ones.
I remember getting to see them live at Downtown and watching that opening pod of choreo. And this is an effect that you can only really do. Only a couple cores a year, I think, are clean enough to pull off an effect like they did, where you have all this big, cool, sweeping unison choreo, and then every once in a while, like 2 or 3 or 4 people would like stutter on a previous step, and then like join back up eventually. First of all, very cool design.
Yeah.
Because usually they would stutter, the whole group would break off, and then the whole group would do another move that then they just melted into.
Yeah.
And it would be like so smooth, great visual design, and it's so clean that it reads as people are popping out of the texture on purpose.
Yeah. Not a mistake that was corrected, but a very deliberate, glitch, to make that make sense.
And then this is such a small thing, but right at the end where they like do like the glitched reprise of the opener, and they have the people just marching and spinning.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, go off, King.
Yeah. There is a dude in there, like I remember watching him, like, yo, that guy is flying in circles. He's like, yeah.
It's so fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It just like it adds to the visual texture in the right way, and you're just like, it looks like just silly enough while not being taking you out of the moment.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And the whole entire ending part where they get to True Colors and then the color palettes are together.
Yeah.
Everything together.
That's
such
drill
a cool
design.
ending.
It's a cool, because you can't see it, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's there.
I know. I remember watching it, like, I remember having seen that at Downtown, the new ending, where they mix all the colors up, and they do this big, huge rotation, boom, it hits, and all the colors are together at the end.
Yeah.
I remember watching it and knowing that that's what they were going to do, and that finals being like, I was like, did they change? I remember my brain thinking, like, there's no way they can organize all the colors suddenly, and like you said, it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's such smart drill design.
Yep.
And it's just spectacular show.
It's a good show. Yeah. It's such a good show.
I hope they keep up the momentum and God, I hope they get a championship in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
right?
I mean they're right there. They're
so
second right now, right?
Heck,
so
I mean, you could maybe they might pull a crown 2012 to 13 and just be like,
this is all right. We're coming. All
right, yeah.
It's very
second
possible.
last year. Bluecoats move aside. It's our turn.
Yeah, I would love to see not the Blue Devils win next year, although
cool.
I have a feeling that they're going to. So
it's hard.
We haven't gone more than 1 year without the Blue Devils winning.
Yeah, but also they got third. That's the first time it's happened since 2006.
That's very, very true.
I wouldn't be surprised if they win next year, but also
it'd
be cool to see things shake up. I want to see Phantom win next year.
Oh God,
I want to see Phantom medal next year at least.
Yeah, medaling would be great.
Although it would be hard because then they'd have to
beat one of these 3.
Yeah, one of those 3 and like
Blue Devils, Boston, and then Bluecoats, which we haven't talked about yet.
Which let's just
go ahead and finish
anything
this
left
up.
about Boston?
No,
or yeah, we've talked so much about them.
Listen, that show, I didn't stay for the. I wish I would have stayed for the encore.
The encore run, yeah,
but
for Bluecoats.
But it was like seeing it live again. It was just so good. It's so.
It is. It's undeniable. I think
it is one of those shows that. By the way, I figured I saw this too. It is the first undefeated show since 2002 that wasn't a Blue Devils show.
Yeah.
So,
Blue Devils, all the power to them. They got several undefeated seasons. But first undefeated season
since Cavaliers.
In more than 2 decades.
Yeah, 22 years. Yeah.
And 22, was that Frameworks?
Yeah, it's Frameworks. Yeah.
Which again, a 99 show.
Yeah.
A staple of drum corps history in terms of fantastic performance and design.
Yep.
Right. And now Coates gets to be up there sort of with them.
And that's what I was going to say. They are a new staple in design, quality, and just performance, precision. Like it's incredible. That show is what else do you say about it?
It's the first, it feels to me like the first basically perfect drum corps show.
Yeah. From a design
in the post-COVID era again, since these last 3 years, right? I just remember seeing it being like,
that is
they finally figured it out. Yeah.
If they can figure out another design next year, whatever the heck it's going to be, that is just as cohesive and just as free flowing, it makes sense. Again, from a design standpoint, they're going to have the members. They're going to have the members and the staff and all this stuff, right? They're going to repeat next year because I think they
very well could.
I do not think. I think even if the Blue Devils had done one of their championship shows in the last 6-7 years, right? I think the show still wins.
I think it probably does.
I think it still beats it. And so Blue Devils being where they are this year, we said it's because of this. They've come out of their thing and whatever else. I kind of wish they would have done a normal Blue Devils jazz show.
Performed up to the standard to the performance.
And not that they're out of standard, but like a normal show that normally wins for them, because there is a very clean and very understandable process. There's a what do you call it? Not a menu, but like there's a click the box thing for the Blue Devils. If they do these things, if they don't move and they play really hard music and they do jazz and they do these things and they have their Blue Devils uniforms and their guards really good, then they win every single year, because I don't know why, but
performing very well.
Sure, okay, whatever. You still have to have a design. We keep saying design for everything. But then we say the Blue Devils and look how well they're performing it. Okay, well, there has to be a design there too. And I just never think the design is there. That's always my problem, is that I don't think the design is there for them. But anyway, my point is that when you look at the Bluecoats, this year's design, that is design. That is a designed championship show. It's just like SCV 2018. That is a designed championship show. It is undeniably incredible from start to finish. There's no lulls. Everything makes sense. Everything makes sense together. There's not a single second of that show.
There's not a bar of wasted music. Yeah.
Correct. Or silence, which is the best part of that show. Just listen. It's incredible. And if you weren't at finals and listening to the absolute silence from the crowd, and it's almost a breath.
Because everyone's just holding. No one wants to ruin the moment. Yeah.
As all the sound goes away immediately, guard throws rifles, and they go, bomb.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's incredible.
It's
absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's I just thought about this. Everyone knows, and everyone guns for, it's a hard thing to make a crowd get as loud as you do for Phantom. To get on their feet.
Yeah.
It's an effect that you want to go for, right? You design moments to get the crowd loud, to react.
Correct.
It is extremely difficult to get the crowd to be quiet.
Yes.
Because of how effective you are, right? I mean, it's easy to get the crowd to be quiet if you're bad. But
you're right.
It is such an impressive design standpoint to demand the audience's silence and focus.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. The guard feature's that way too.
Exactly. The guard feature, everyone like shuts up because you don't want to ruin the moment. Yeah. You want to just be there and like see and experience and feel it.
Yep.
It is such a cool experience to be a part of and watch. A show that demands the audience's attention as much as it does.
This is my 26 years of my second finals, and I think is by far. I'm so happy that shout out to Tex if he's watching this. He sold me his two spare tickets he had.
Nice
so
tickets.
I just ended up getting great tickets, and I got to share that with Steven, and he was there for his first finals. I mean, it was really I couldn't have asked for a better show, a better year to be in presence for where I was sitting, where I was, to really just, and I say it all the time, like, I love drum corps. It's 26 years. It's been my an entire adult life at this point, watching or performing or doing it. And I still can just appreciate and love the activity so much that it brings me to tears. It makes me cry when I watch it. I get goosebumps talking about it. Like, it's an awesome. And that show gave me everything I could ever possibly want in the drum corps show.
Yeah. It is the absolute cherry on top of a phenomenal year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think anytime you've seen, I think there's some exceptions. Like SCV 2018 might be an exception to this, but I think a lot of times when you see championship shows that aren't Blue Devils, they're there because like the design is on point,
right?
And their performance is like just good enough. It's like usually they're not quite outperforming the Blue Devils,
right?
But they're just close enough that their design, takes them,
propel them forward.
Yeah,
right.
the extra. Right. This is one of the first years that I think we saw design and performance. Just absolutely dominant performance from Bluecoats.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I cannot believe how clean their feet are.
I couldn't believe how clean their feet were day one.
Right?
Yeah.
The preview show, you watch them, there's
like,
stark white uniforms, the line down.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I watched them clean when they were down the street here at Springford. I watched them clean. I watched them clean that opening set where they're doing the running thing for like an hour. Right. And it was like they were doing it step by step. Like, I mean, I was like,
crazy level of detail.
Yeah, super crazy. Yeah. And honestly, like, I watched them practice and I was like, oh, these guys don't really practice that much more different or difficult than we do. Like, there's just when members,
small thing. Yeah, it's
a member
quality.
thing. It's a member quality thing, right?
I think it's also
quality is such a strong word. It's a member attention to detail thing. Because I don't think you have to.
That's why the Blue Devils keep winning. Listen to what Connor said when we had him on, right?
You just have kids that buy in, and you have people that they go, this is 30 days or 3 months of my life, and I am going to give 100% of everything to these 3 months, or in the 6 months leading up to that too, to prepare myself for the greatest season I could possibly have. Yeah. And when you put in all that
championship worthy mindset.
Exactly. That's all it is. That's all that it is.
Yep.
And they found 165 members to all have that mindset because it's just crazy. It's so good.
Crazy quality. Yeah. I hope it leads Bluecoats to be a more performance dominant group, because I think we always see Blue Devils at the top of the performance line, right? But I think the fact that Bluecoats won general effect and visual and brass, and they were pretty they're pretty runaway dominant in visual.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
It's just an incredible testament to the quality of performers that they got.
And 2 years ago they won a Sanford, their first Sanford. So they have,
and this year they got. I mean, I think they had second place. Yeah, they had second place percussion at finals.
Yeah. And I took third in color guard, I think.
Something again very high, right?
Boston.
No, second in color guard for finals night.
Finals night, okay, yeah. So it's the same thing. Like you're getting all the members, and then like knowing a little bit about their color guard program. Like their most of their color guard program is their staff and people are there, and a lot of people are from Fusion's Indoor who won indoor color guard this year. So you have a connection there. Fusion Indoor Color Guard and Bluecoats, they have a marriage like we do with Crown. Yeah. So you have the most dominant, or at least last year, the most dominant indoor color guard program mixed with one of the most dominant drum corps, feeding and passing back and forth. So it's just a successful thing that's going to continue to happen. So I mean, the Northeast is the place for color guard. Other than freaking Blue Devils who are on the West Coast, between Bluecoats and Boston, that's the place to be. And we have all the better indoor programs over here too, I think personally. Yeah, so a lot of them. So it's good. I think Bluecoats are going to continue to be dominant. They did 3 second places and a first place now. Yeah, it does not, like, I know they dropped, I think they're fifth, in 2017. Yeah, fifth place. On finals night. Yeah. They dropped from 4th to 5th. Yeah. I don't foresee that happening next year. I don't think so either. It just feels like 2016 feels like the perfect combo of, like, again, their members were just good enough, obviously very spectacular, right? But like just good enough to be the Blue Devils, and they had a lot of age outs, and it was like, everything came together right at the right time. And the next year they, had some missteps with design and member expectations, I think. Yeah.
they felt so dominant this year. I just don't see that happening.
Well, and here's the thing:
I
it's
think they're
not
going to
just
stay in the top 3.
It's just not about them being dominant this year. They were in second place the last 2 years.
Yeah,
and
they built a consistent,
and they should have been first place in 2019 because they were first place going into the finals, and then the Blue Devils crappy show, whatever it was, ended up beating them there. Like Lucy's a good show.
I think they got.
You know,
or the beat. It was just called the Bluecoats.
The Bluecoats, yeah. That's a good show. That's a championship show in my mind.
Oh, yeah, it is.
You know, it is.
I think any other against a 16 and 18 show would have, against not the Blue Devils 2019, they would have won.
Well, obviously, because the Blue Devils 2019 freaking won. But I think it beats that show too, personally. Yeah. So they should be in a 1-2-2-2-1.
Yeah.
You know, but they're not. They're in 4 twos now.
Three-peat. No, it was a three-peat of 2s. 19, because 21 wasn't adjudicated.
Oh, okay, yeah. 19, 20, 22, 23. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
either way, and
in 18 they were third.
Yeah,
that was Sessions 44 was third.
Yep.
So yes, I mean they're a top 3 core the last 5 years.
They've been holding on to it. They've been building it up, and I think this year was just.
I don't think they fall out. I don't know that they can make another show like that.
I don't know. Yeah, well, remains to be seen. I hope they can.
When you look at the Cavaliers from 2000, 2001, and 2002. I remember watching
would love
every
to
single,
see another hot streak.
I remember watching those shows in 2000 and going, "There's no way they top that next year." And then I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
and then
the best one of the bunch.
I was like, "Whoa! Holy crap!
Keep doing this.
How do they
get away with this?"
Yeah, and then they won again in 04 and 06. You know, so like
I would love to see Bluecoats become a similarly dominant mainstay
of this decade.
Demand more championships.
I mean, as far as this decade goes, besides the Blue Devils, you know, they're the most dominant drum corps of this decade so far. You know, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, cherry on top of what I think both of us agree. It's a super great year for drum corps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, it's
very exciting year to be a fan. Right? And to be a performer.
Super great. So speaking of fans, if you're still watching this after 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Are extremely long-winded. We wanted to get, we had to make up for lost time.
We haven't done a podcast in like 2 or 3 weeks. And Robbie,
get all of our system.
He just gotta talk some more. Yeah. So thank you all for staying and watching. If you're still here, I'll throw, hopefully, I probably did. I can't. I'm calling the future. I'm going to put the little time dials in there. So if you don't want to listen to us talk about this entire thing.
If you want to talk about our specific drum corps that we want to talk about.
We'll throw it in there. I'll throw it in there so it's good to go. But thank you all for coming out and watching. We plan on continuing to make content throughout the fall and everything else too. Now that the season's not on, we'd really love to hear from you guys and see kind of some of the things you want. I have some mystery things that I'm
things planned that we kind of put on the back burner a bit.
Yeah, a little on the back burner that to get the recap stuff in. So there's some mystery. I have some big name guests maybe coming in. So I got to reach out and do some politicking and see what I can do. Yeah, but I think I have a good lead on a couple of really cool guests. So find your friends, send them out and tell them to come watch this recap, and we hope you enjoyed it. And I think that unless you have something else, you're good.
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up. We've overstayed our welcome, I think.
Yes, we have.
So for now, off cycle.